Okay, and we're live.
Oh,
cool.
Hello. Hello, people.
Which camera am I looking at today? There's like 3 cameras.
Yeah, I'm like, this is very professional.
I feel like we add a camera every week.
Like, how come I'm not live on here?
It's probably delayed.
Might be delayed a
It's
little
delayed. Yeah, there's like a 10-second delay.
Oh, okay.
bit. Sick.
Yeah,
I want to see myself.
Don't be so vain.
I just want to make sure it's all looking good.
This is definitely
I can
an
see it
interesting
over there.
experience. Having
Now that's a little too
definitely
much.
more than we usually do, Spencer.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm used to just like one
big
camera.
setup.
I'm used to like one camera.
missed
watching
one, so
yourself.
Yeah, I missed last week and you
I
guys just
have
went.
well, because
Went
Like-
full
like
Tom
I need to
Ohio,
make sure
this is
that
insane.
everything does look good.
Like usually
though.
it's one
Like,
camera, we talk
from
to the camera,
another
then we leave.
source.
But now it's like 9
It's still
different
not going,
cameras
though.
and like 40 different screens. Like this is great. There's like a screen there. Oh, there's shit.
Should
That's
I-
another camera.
Yep.
1, 2,
Guys,
3.
we're live on
And there's the
Instagram.
store camera.
Yeah.
We've been live on Instagram.
Oh yeah. What's
Oh,
up, Instagram?
Hello.
Hello.
I don't know where Instagram is.
Now
Over there?
now they've acknowledged
It's just
you
in the
guys.
ether. We're being watched by Big Brother
We're
all the
getting
time
ready to
anyway.
start. How come it's not going, yo?
Hey, Big Brother.
Hi.
Isn't that Mulan's dog's name?
Big brother.
Oh no, that was his little brother.
Hey, hermano.
Should I be concerned?
Hermano. Just throw it to me, Nick, I guess, when you want
If
me to
there's
start.
watchers in the chat, can they let us know that they're watching or no?
Yeah,
Watchers.
show.
Who watches them?
I think I can't even.
Who
You know what?
watches the watchers if the watchers are watching the watchers?
Nick.
Yeah, I guess Nick does.
Yeah, Nick's watching.
Nick watches.
Just start at some point.
Did you enable the chat? Because for some reason I can't open it up.
No.
Oh, I got it. Okay, but it's still
those
the
cookies?
video's still not.
Grab a cookie, maybe?
Wait, it's not on the shelf. Did it go down?
The video.
just
No. The video
grab
is not working.
Bart.
It
Please
just says
stand
starting
by.
soon.
It's fine, 'cause I saw it on
You
Nick's.
should have one of those Simpsons
No, 'cause that's-
technical
Yeah,
difficulties.
he's
yeah.
controlling.
It's like a guy with like
Yeah.
a hammer.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
controlling it. So,
Yeah.
but from YouTube itself, like,
That's not
it's not working.
Is there any way I can check on my phone to see if I can see
Yeah,
it?
you
Like maybe
can
it's
check.
just the iPad?
It might be that.
Just go to our channel, and then it's the first video.
Animation success.
Okay, they can hear us.
Oh, they got audio?
Oh, they're listening to us.
Oh yeah, we got some audio, baby.
No.
Oh yeah, that is really delayed.
Oh yeah, this is like 30 seconds ago.
Yeah.
Audio.
Okay.
What did you do different this time, Nick, than you did last week?
Nothing. I think it's giving me a saying that it's like
Oh wow.
the
We're
video is
everywhere.
not smooth enough. Maybe there's something I can force here.
Maybe we should try to hop back on the Wi-Fi, or you don't think so?
I don't know. I mean, it should be better without being on the list.
This is an interesting
Do
situation.
you guys have
for
another XLR cable?
Sure. XLR, I do. Yes.
Okay, well then I can record your audio separately.
Okay.
Okay, there you go.
So at least you'll have that as a backup.
It's in my hobo briefcase.
Okay.
guys do your
Can you guys still hear us?
What's that?
Get this set up.
Okay.
I just rebooted the stream.
Okay, it's moving a little bit more.
All
At least
right,
there'll be
little bit of
something uploaded
movement.
at some point.
That's watchable. That's watchable.
Yeah, I waved
Catch
and I
this?
didn't see
Catch
my way.
this?
Oh, there we go. It's a little delayed, but
Yeah.
it's going.
You're gonna catch my movements in a second.
Well, there you
Yep.
go.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. This is like 1999 internet. It's like
Yeah, there we go. I
Tom
mean,
Green's
there's some
looking
movement
around.
there.
Yeah.
I think we
We're
can
just
start.
doing that.
Or
Exactly.
oh, we'll wait for Ebbet.
Oh no, go ahead.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't wait for me.
All right. Should we have a little countdown?
if you guys
thing,
you
or-
guys you want to get started, or
Yeah, let's get started.
Are the technical difficulties out of the way?
I think so. This is the best we're gonna get.
Bank says the frame rate is low, but audio is great.
How's the, with the air
Well,
conditioning?
it is a podcast.
Yeah, I'm sure it's fine.
I haven't heard any complaints.
Cool. As long as they can hear
Let us know if you guys hear air conditioning in here and if it's loud or something. But they're all saying audio is good.
Okay, then we're
That's
good.
what matters.
How about this?
Oh, that's how we can
Round
start
two.
it.
Okay, guys. We apologize for the delay. Should we start?
Yeah.
Are we all good, Nick?
We should be.
Okay. Countdown? Anything? Anyone?
Sure, Nick.
Or just go into
Yeah,
it?
if you wanna. Sure, Nick. You wanna give me a countdown and I'll start it.
Yeah, sure. 3, 2, 1.
What camera am I looking at? I forget.
Just to the-
Okay, this one. Hey everybody, welcome to the official start of the Ass Podcast. You might have been watching for the last 15 minutes. Sorry about that. This is when it is starting right now. If you have never watched and or listened to the Ass Podcast before, Ass is an acronym. We do not talk about asses on the show, or not frequently at least. On occasion they do pop up.
We're sorry
But-
for you fetishes.
Yeah.
I'm out of here. This is something else.
No, but we're gonna talk about about your ass.
We are going
Alright,
to talk about
great.
Spencer's ass, and by ass I mean his animation success story. That's what the acronym stands for. Animation Success Stories Podcast is what you're watching. Essentially what we do here is we talk to animation industry professionals. We hear their story, how they started out in the industry, where they began, and where they are now. We listen to the journey they needed to go through, the mountains they needed to climb, the rivers they needed to swim through, and the shit they needed to trod through in order to get to where they are right now in their current profession. So today on our podcast we have Spencer Rothbell right over here. What up, Spence? So I think since we don't do, since we're just live streaming for the last few episodes, we don't do intros anymore, right? Or are we still throwing to like cool music intro? Not anymore.
I did not make one for this episode.
Okay.
Okay, so we don't have one today. So guess what?
Sorry.
I'm not going to throw to it. Instead, we're going to go right into the thick of it. So let's do that right now here on the Animation Success Stories Podcast. It is time to find out about Spencer Rothbell's ass. Ready to dig deep into your ass?
Over to you.
Ooh, boy. Boy, am I.
Boy, am I. All right, so Spence, first of all, thanks for being on our podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, dude, no problem. It's amazing that you're here. Thank you so much. We are very honored to have you. If you guys don't know, Spencer, he was the head writer of Clarence, as well as the voice of Clarence. He's currently working on a show called 12 Forever for Netflix. And yeah, I think this is the first time we've had like a voice of one of the main characters of a show on our podcast. So we'll find all about how that works out shortly.
Yeah, well, technically we have Bowser for Ren and
Yeah, we've
Stimpy.
had.
Oh
some
yeah,
voices.
Bowser
Yeah.
was
There
Ren
you
and
go.
Stimpy. True.
But
Okay.
but Spencer's our first writer voice actor.
Ooh.
No, we haven't had a writer.
Yeah, I don't. We had Abed.
Oh yeah, we had Abed.
We had Abed who
I
wrote
just saw Hobbit.
Abed.
Yeah,
Abed's
Abed's
a
great.
weirdo. Yeah, he's probably he often watches our podcast, so he
He's
might be
great.
watching right now. He is great. Cool. So Spencer, are you ready to get your ass dug deep into?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. That's like the 9th time I said that. It's about time to start. Okay. All right. So we usually start off the podcast by asking the same question, which is, what is your first animation memory? What is your very first animation memory?
Of like exposure to cartoons.
Yeah.
It could be
That
any,
thing?
yeah, exposure to cartoon. It could be anything. It could be like, oh, I rode the Dumbo ride when I was 2 and I wanted to watch Dumbo. Or it could be, I
That's
watched Three Amigos 40 times when I was 7.
That's good.
So,
That's a good movie.
yeah.
I feel like for me, maybe it was like I watched a lot of Pee-wee's Playhouse as a kid, and they showed those little animated segments of like just cuts of like old 1920s like
Yeah.
Betty Boop and stuff.
Yeah,
maybe
it's like
that's
Penny too.
maybe that's kind of and all the animated stuff like Penny and like
That's
yeah,
a
maybe
good-
that's kind of what got me into it. But I don't know. I just feel like I've always liked cartoons forever or something. Like used to watch a lot of like old Disney like Beauty and the Beast and stuff. Not old, but you know. My generation's Disney.
Old Disney
Yeah,
back in
ancient.
1992.
Yeah.
I guess to kids now that is really old, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
If you weren't
It's
born
my
when it
year.
was, yeah.
Yeah.
If it didn't come out when you were born, I think people consider it really old.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
So Pee-wee's Playhouse, that's pretty good, like Gary Panther style stuff. Interesting.
Huge Pee-wee fan.
Was that like a influence on you think the way you write and stuff, like Pee-wee Herman's Pee-wee's Playhouse, the weird absurdity of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think something that I always really liked as a kid about Pee-wee as a character is that, like, he's not really trying to be so, like, cheery and sunny. Like, he's kind of sarcastic and, like,
Yeah.
kind of rude. And,
He's kind
like,
of a dick sometimes.
Yeah, he's kind of a jerk. Like, same like Bugs Bunny, I guess.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I always was more drawn to characters like that. They're,
Uh-huh.
like, they think they're doing the right thing, but maybe they're being kind of selfish or, like,
Yeah,
that's
for
pretty
sure.
funny.
Like a child.
Yeah, like I think Clarence is a little bit like that, where it's like he thinks he's like he's helping everyone all the time, but sometimes they don't want his help or
Yeah.
necessarily need it, and like
His views are a little askew.
yeah,
He's not quite sure what's right and wrong.
yeah. I always think
No,
that that's pretty funny.
He's very sure what's right
Yeah, he knows, but he's not always right.
Cool. So did you? So from a young age, seeing as Pee Wee was like your first animation memory. I think
so.
From a young age, is that something that made you want to get into animation, or did you always know you wanted to be in animation, or is that something that you decided later on in life?
Yeah, I mean, I always liked to draw, and like I always liked cartoons, and you know, as a kid, I'd watch all the like Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, and Disney stuff, and yeah, like I had like My Neighborhood Totoro on VHS and would watch that.
Nice.
And, like, I feel like I just always liked cartoons forever. I don't know.
What sparked your love for writing?
For writing?
Like, what was your first memory where like you found yourself writing for something and then like you just really fell in love with doing it?
If there was anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I feel like I've always been some sort of storyteller. Like, ever since I got my hands on, like, a crappy home video camera, like, me and my friends would make movies and, like, just, like, cut them together and joke around and, like, I don't know, it all kind of feels like all the same thing in a way, somehow. Like,
yeah, it's all related.
You're all just kind of...
storytelling.
Yeah, like, I don't know, I mean, like, I didn't have, like, a ton of writing experience before Clarence, but I've always liked telling stories in one way or another, and, yeah, I don't know.
Cool. So did you know you want... Because you did a slightly... less traditional route into the animation industry than a lot of the guests we've had on, and a lot of the guests didn't have the traditional route either. But I know you in particular. I think you said you went to eventually CalArts for experimental animation, which we'll get to in a second.
Yeah.
But Clarence was your first animated job, right? Was that your first job in animation?
Yeah. I mean, I had done like little bits of animation for like friends' projects and like a friend music video. A friend of mine who also went to CalArts, he's a rapper, he goes by Young Jake, and like I did some animation for one of his videos. And like just little things here and there, but this was like the first major thing that
Gotcha. So let's step back a bit and let's say let's just kind of go through the timeline a little bit more. So when you were in high school, let's say, was how did you make the decision of what college to go to? Because you said you went to CalArts. Is that something you did right after high school, or was there a bit of a beat?
Yeah,
after that?
it was right after. I always knew I wanted to do something visual, and I didn't know if it was film or like for a long time I thought I was gonna make comics. Like I love comics, and like when I was really young, I just thought that's what I was gonna do is make comics.
Sure.
And then I applied to a ton of art schools, and CalArts was always just like the number one for me because I wanted to do cartoons, and that's like everyone, like the big Disney school, you know.
Sure.
And I think my drawings were too weird and clunky for character animation, and so they're like, well, what about experimental? There's this other program that's like kind of smaller, and you could try out for that. I'm like, okay. And so that's where I ended up. But I applied to like some schools in New York and like Savannah College of Art and Design, and like SVA and a couple other Pratt and stuff. Yeah. But this is kind of where I ended up. It's where I wanted to be. So
yeah, that's great. So that was your number one choice, CalArts.
Yeah. When I was in high school, and then they had a recruiter that was like that came to my school, and then I went out to CalArts when I was still in high school and like did a tour.
Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Vermont, and then halfway through high school, my family moved to Baltimore.
Okay.
So that's when I was like a junior or senior in Baltimore.
Yeah. Did you go to a traditional high school, or was it like an arts high school?
Just a traditional. Yeah. Well, I went to public school for most of my life, and then a Quaker school for my junior and senior year, which I'm not a Quaker, but it's called the Friends School. It's a very cute name.
What's the Quaker, like the religion Quaker?
Yeah, it sounds like religion.
It's kind of like, I mean, I'm not religious at all, and I didn't grow up with any kind of religion, but it's like a form of Christianity that's like very peace oriented, I guess. I don't know much about it. I don't know much about it.
I remember learning briefly about the Quakers in history class.
Yeah, it's strange, man. Actually,
eat a lot of oats.
Yeah.
I know that. And built barns. Racing barns.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So you went to why did you go to a Quaker school? Sorry for the tangent, but I'm curious.
I don't know. When we moved to Baltimore,
that was the only one available?
I don't know.
He was going through a time in his life where he turned to Quakerism.
I don't know. When I was a teenager, I was just like, okay, that's what's going on.
He's
sure.
It's like, screw you, Mom. I'm not going to go any anti-religion here. I'm going to become a Quaker.
Son, I want you to be an atheist. No, man.
He's shook. Just kidding.
Like your parents both have big mohawks, but you're like wearing a suit and you're like trying to spread the word of Jesus.
No, I'm an atheist. I'm not. I didn't grow up with, like, my dad's family's Jewish, my mom's family's Irish Catholic, but I didn't grow up with any kind of religion at all.
Better for it.
Just a heathen.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. So
a bad boy.
I'm just a bad boy rebel.
That's
I
the
feel
way.
like if you were a Quaker out here in LA, you would be the one that's being the rebel, because I feel like most
I
people
don't know.
out in LA are
It seems
atheists.
like are there that many Quakers out there?
I've never
like,
heard-
I should know, but I don't know. That
I've
much
never met a Quaker in my life. You're the first Quaker I've met.
Well, I'm not a Quaker. I just went to the school. I was
No,
not.
I know,
you
I know.
Just a high school I went to.
So everybody, just for the record, Spencer is a Quaker.
I'm a Quaker. I love the tenets of Quakerism, whatever they may be.
Whatever they are.
Okay,
Anyways.
Jesus and peace. I think
Driver
just
stage-
everyone's logging off right now.
Yeah.
It has to do with cartoons at all.
Stagecoach, raise a barn, wear funny hats, powdered wigs. Yeah, we get it.
Yeah, powdered wigs and
powdered
funny
wig.
hats,
I
yeah.
have under this. Yeah.
So in this high school, so
Okay, yeah. So there was a rep from CalArts that I think
Yeah.
went to my school.
Okay, cool.
But then even beyond that, like when I was looking at schools, I came out to LA and like
Okay.
met with a what do they call them?
A recruiter?
Recruiter? Is that what they're
I
called?
guess.
Yeah.
Recruitment person, and then like toured the school and everything.
Cool. So I'm really interested about the experimental animation program and how exactly what your portfolio needed to look like to get into it, and exactly what you needed to do in order to get into the CalArts experimental animation program, because I'm sure a lot of people out there, maybe they want to go that route, because we've had a lot of people here that have gone the traditional, character animation route.
Yeah.
I think you might be one of the first that's gone this. We might have had one other person.
There's not a
but
ton of
what did you need to do that?
Yeah, look, there's not a ton of people that I know that, like, most of the people in animation that I know that went to CalArts were in character.
Yeah.
There's, like, a couple people I know that were in experimental. But yeah, my portfolio was, like, all kinds of stuff. Like, I sent them, like, a short film I did, like, photography stuff, paintings, drawings, comics, cartoon stuff. It was, like, a real
That sounds
sculptural.
experimental.
It was, like, all kinds of stuff. I was just like, here's everything I made in high school, and, like, hopefully you guys like it. Like, that's, I don't remember specifically what they were looking for, but they...
Did you make it in high school? Like, as projects? Or
my
did you
portfolio stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, like an art class and stuff,
Okay.
and outside of class too.
Okay.
And I had sketchbooks. I remember bringing my sketchbook and showing them all
So
the
you
cartooning stuff that I
utilized
did.
those classes that you took in high school to, like, work towards a college.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was definitely like with that in mind.
'Kay,
Yeah,
keep
with
that in
building
mind,
build a
folks.
portfolio. Use your
Yeah.
time wisely.
Well,
Did you-
it seems like since middle school you were like, I want to be an artist.
Oh yeah, since like elementary school, I was always drawing and
Mhm.
making stuff. And
Yeah. When did you realize? A question that we often ask that I kind of didn't go through this time, but when did you realize that working in animation was something that you wanted to do as a career? Is that something you realized early on, or is that something that you kind of realized later?
I mean, honestly, it was always something that I would have loved to do, but for some reason it felt like so out of reach somehow. Like it was just like, even though I had friends that were like starting to work in the industry and everything, I was like, oh well, that's them, that's not me. Like
Yeah.
it always felt like this sort of unattainable goal.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know, it felt like a weird miracle or something when it happened. I was like, oh, I can't believe it. Like it's hard to see yourself doing something unless you've done it. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
like unless you're in that position, it
Sure.
just feels like, oh well, that's for someone else.
Yeah, I hear you.
But yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to do something with TV and like with cartoons. I love cartoons, so
Everybody loves cartoons. Okay, so in talking a little bit more about the experimental program at CalArts,
Mhm.
can you kind of dive in a little bit now that you kind of explained a little bit what your portfolio was like? It seems like your portfolio was pretty much like all over the map. You had a little
That's
bit
a
of
lot.
everything. So was there anything when going into the experimental animation program, was there anything specifically that you needed to kind of like bear in mind? Any prerequisite skills you had to have or something along those lines? Like, was there a figure drawing you needed to have in your portfolio, or did they go over that in the...
I think like the easiest way for me to talk about the program is like compare it to the character program.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And I think like the big difference is like character stuff is very like traditional narrative storytelling,
Mhm.
figure drawing,
Yeah.
like all those kind of skills that you would associate with like Pixar, Disney, like that type of stuff.
Sure.
Whereas experimental was more diverse in the sense that it could be something. I mean, of course, this is like generalized. Like there's crossover with both programs, but like experimental, some people were making stuff for gallery spaces, like really abstract stuff that was like
makes sense.
projections. Some of it was like stuff that was more the traditional route. Some was like festival films, like shorts that would just go to festivals.
Yeah.
A lot of people ended up doing stuff like commercial work. Like it was kind of all over the map. And like,
do a lot of mixed media too?
yeah, there's like scratch on. I took one class, it was like scratch on film and like all kinds of crazy stuff, stop motion, and of course like, you know, you could do one or the other in either program. Like it wasn't like you have to be one type of thing. But I think with character, it felt a little more focused, and experimental felt a little more like more driven by the student, like whatever you wanted to get out of it, kind of. Where it seemed like character had like more of a kind of routine that everyone sort of followed.
Yeah,
Get you ready for Walt.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to generalize too much,
Well,
because
like
I'm sure there's
plenty of
you know,
friends who
people
went to
that
the character.
they can do either one, you know,
Yeah.
and there's plenty of people that I know from experimental that ended up, I mean, look at me, like I'm working at like places like Cartoon Network, and like that's not exactly experimental, you know, so it just kind of depends on the person too.
Yeah.
Your experimental friends were like, you traitor.
Sell out.
Could you? There's some
Switched
pretty.
over.
How dare you get a job?
I remember there being some pretty weird shit in Clarence sometimes.
Oh no, I mean, we definitely did some crazy stuff on that show.
Yeah. Okay, so let's try to keep moving through like the timeline here, because I kind of want to know exactly how you ended up where you are now. So in CalArts, was there anything monumental that happened while you were going to CalArts that kind of led you down the path that you're going? Because I know you didn't go right to working in animation. There was a time you told me like you were working in comedy and whatnot. So what were some of the greatest experiences you've had at CalArts that helped you out?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of it was just like the people that I met there. I mean, honestly, like I spent a lot of time with a lot of people who are in character who I work with now.
Yeah.
And like I think just being exposed to different types of film that I hadn't seen before when I was in high school, and like having different roommates that showed me things that they were into, and honestly, like it was mostly like just the experience of meeting all these other people that are interested in art, and
So being around like-minded people.
Yeah,
and, like,
yeah.
learning and absorbing from them.
Yeah, exactly. And seeing these people, like the cool thing about the experimental program is that it's small, and so I was a BFA student, but then they also mix the MFA students in with us. So there were people that were much more experienced than me, that were in the same classes, that you know, you could see them work, like people like Kirsten Lepore and like other animators that like you're just like, oh wow, like they're doing so much. I mean, I'm like 18, you know, like doing so much more than I ever had, and like just being able to kind of learn from other students too, like I think that was a big part of it.
That's great. So after you graduated CalArts, what was next for you?
So
was there like a gap?
Yeah, like there was a couple of years after I left CalArts where I just didn't know what I wanted to do, and I thought maybe I wanted to do comedy, and I was doing Second City, like improv stuff. And then
You thought you wanted to do stand-up comedy. Is that what you wanted to do?
I mean, I didn't really know. I was doing improv comedy,
improv.
but I didn't really know what I
Was
was
it a
doing.
thing where you were getting paid for it, or was it just
No,
something you were doing
I
for
mean, it was
fun?
just like, just figuring out what I wanted to do. I mean, living
Second
in
City's
Chicago,
an improv class, right? So you
I took classes, and I was like in an improv group and stuff. But like, there's nothing like I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, and I thought maybe like I wanted to get into comedy because I always loved comedy. And then I had friends who were starting up on the show Clarence, and they're like, hey, we're doing this thing, and like they always thought I was really funny at school, and they're like, we're looking for someone to write.
Be funny in school, kids. It'll get you
Do
somewhere.
prank calls. That's honestly, that's how I got into animation. Is like I would hang out with my friends at like our dorm room, and like we'd be like at a party or whatever, and I would just do voices. I do weird voices and do prank calls, and they all thought it was funny. And
Can we
then
do a prank phone call
then
later
years
after
later,
this?
they're like,
Yeah, we should totally do a prank phone.
Oh god,
we can call somebody we know. We
If
can
I
call
have a
somebody
beer
we
or
know.
something.
All right. I'll go through my phone and I'll pick somebody. Can we?
I haven't done one since I was like 18 or something.
You're rusty now.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, like I think they just always thought I was really funny, and they liked the stuff that I made, and they hit me up to like essentially I did like the equivalent of like a board test but for writing.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't a very accomplished writer.
Yeah.
So they kind of like almost made up this thing for me because they liked me and they wanted to be like, hey, this guy can do it. And so I ended up doing a thing where I wrote like a bunch of premise ideas for Clarence for the show, and then like a couple scenes with dialogue, and then like I wrote like a full script, and then I wrote a second full script.
Wow.
Because I was very green, you know, and like Cartoon Network was taking a risk on hiring me.
Was this before season 1 had aired?
It was like right when they were starting production. So I think I came on like maybe like 6 episodes into production or something like that.
Yeah.
So there's stuff I wrote that I'm like uncredited for in like the first couple episodes and stuff, like little snippets and dialogue and stuff. And
but the show itself was already pretty well established by that point. At least tonally.
It was just kind of starting up, I would say. Yeah, like I mean,
they had the pilot was already done, right?
The pilot, yeah, I didn't have anything to do with the pilot, yeah.
Okay.
But I would say like I helped develop the show in a way, like
cool.
and into what it became.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I ended up doing that, and then like those 2 scripts ended up eventually becoming like real episodes.
Oh, the ones that you did as a test.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
like later down the line. And then they're like, okay, well, we're kind of taking a chance on this guy, and then they hired me on, and then it was almost like I was like just kind of doing punch up and rewrites, and like they would get notes and they'd be like, okay, we got to add this new scene, like how can we like respond to this note? And I would write a new scene. Cool. And then eventually they're like, okay, you can handle that, and then they had me writing full episodes.
Oh, nice. So you kind of worked your way up little by little.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
So before we get into like the really the nitty gritty of Clarence and all the your roles there and everything, I'm wondering how long was this gap after CalArts and Clarence? Like how many years was it?
2 years.
It was it was 2 years.
2 years living with my mom and dad.
Nice.
Oh, okay, so
working at a sandwich shop.
Nice.
Being bummed out, just being like,
That's
what am I
great.
going to do with my life?
This is perfect because
that's reality.
That is reality, and a lot of people are facing that reality right now that are listening and watching to our podcast.
Yeah.
And a lot of times in these interviews, we get situations like this, and one of my favorite questions to ask is like, how do you deal with like these like kind of like harrowing feelings of like, oh shit, I effed up and I don't know what I think my life is gonna go into the shitter.
Yeah,
because some people think that they're gonna work those like little part-time jobs forever.
Forever.
Yeah,
and it does feel like that sometimes, and you're just like, you have some like crappy boss who's like depressed because they have to work there forever.
Yeah.
And then they yell at you. And, like, it sucks. Like I don't know.
What did you do to deal?
I mean, a lot of it was like finding some creative thing that you can get into, like me in Second City. Like, I think if you just still dedicate some part of your life to being creative, and whether that's like, you know, if you want to be a filmmaker, like buy a camera, and like it's so easy to make stuff now. Like there's so many tutorials online, and like download After Effects,
You can show off your
like
stuff easily too.
Yeah, and if you want to be an animator, like get Flash or get After Effects, and like you can put stuff online. Like I feel like it's so much easier now to do that and like have that level. Even if you live in like, maybe you live in a small town and there's not a lot of people like you, and like you can still make this stuff, and there's a community online of people, and you know, like there's people I've met from like Twitter and Instagram, and like people I would never meet, but now that there's this stuff online that we can all connect and like
see people's work.
Yeah, but I think, you know, it's like you can't like make that little crappy day job your whole life. Like you have to have something fun. Like just make something dumb with your friends. That's always the best stuff.
Yeah.
Like don't overthink it. Just like if it's funny or fun to you, then someone else will get something out of it, I think.
Some
That's
work
great
has
advice.
been literally created just by a group of friends hanging out and creating something together. Like there's shows out there that's how it started.
Oh yeah, and I always think like the best stuff I've ever done is just like something that I was just like, oh, this will be funny, and like me and my friends are cracking up at some dumb idea, and it's like only for us. It's not for anyone, you know. And then like
it turns out everybody likes it.
Yeah, if you're like tearing your hair out, like overthinking it, I think that's when stuff kind of comes out bad, because you're like, well, are they gonna like this or not? Will it come out good? Like, is this marketable? Like, oh.
If you laugh at it, do it.
Yeah, but I also want to point out the fact that you're still being productive creatively while you're working the sandwich job.
Yeah.
That it's part of that when you're basically it's almost like you're prepping yourself for the job you'll eventually have. You're not like just like in taking Second City classes and all that stuff, because that's gonna help with your writing, your
voice acting too.
Yeah. So it's like,
but it wasn't like I was like, I'm definitely gonna be this. It was just sort of something creative and fun.
Yeah,
and
but that's how it happens.
Yeah.
Like, even if I wasn't in animation, I'd be drawing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, like I'm always doodling. And I think too, like I wish that like the version of me that left CalArts I could talk to him and be like, hey, like you're capable to do this, you're able to do this, and like I wish I had a little more direction, you know. Like I feel like just keep writing ideas for things. If you want a storyboard, do like a really rough thumbnail board. Like that's fine. Like cut together a little animatic or whatever. Like doesn't have to be fully animated.
Doesn't
Like
have to be perfect.
yeah, I feel like when I was younger, there was so much pressure that I put on myself to be like, oh, I have to make this like perfect polished thing, and like especially when you're in school and you're around all these people that are making this like amazing stuff, and you're like, oh, it has to look great and be serious and all. And I'm like, I'm not serious. Like, why was I making serious stuff? It doesn't make sense.
And another thing people do, they always get discouraged when they don't finish something.
Yeah.
It's better to finish something, but to start something is just as important.
And set little goals. Like, just make a tiny, like, a 1-minute thing. Like, that's all. And then be happy with how that is. Like, it doesn't have to be some grandiose, like... I feel like that's the biggest thing when I, like, talk to younger people that are like, yeah, I want to make this, like, 45-minute. I'm like, oh, my God. Like, like, if you can, that's amazing and you're great. But also, like... Just make like a really good 2-minute thing.
Well, and then I noticed when you're overly ambitious, like you're more bound to like not do anything at all because you're just like you get scared.
You get kind of stuck,
and then you keep giving yourself excuses where you're like, well, only once I get this stuff or once I get this equipment, then I'll be able to do this, or once I like learn how to do this, then I'll do this. Like, why not just do it now with what you have?
Yeah, and like
waiting all
honestly,
time?
that will never go away. Like if you're working on a show, you're working on a TV show, like. That episode that airs on TV is not what lives in your brain, and like it's never going to be exactly right, you know, like you'll get animation back and it's like kind of what you expected, but it's a little off or like whatever, and it's like you just make the best of it and like kind of learn from that and apply that to the next thing you make. And I feel like that's the same concept. It's like when you're young and making stuff, it's like it doesn't have to be polished and perfect. No one's expecting that, you know.
And like they'll never know what would not have been there.
Yeah, no one who watches it is gonna know the version that lives in your brain. That's amazing, and like has $1 billion budget behind it or whatever. Like, you know, like I think it's easy to get down on yourself when you're like, yeah, but it's not perfect. And it's like it'll never be perfect. That's fine. You know,
let perfection be the enemy of the good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Brian's words of wisdom. That was a really good quote.
I'll just follow what Spencer says. I'm old.
I heard that in 19. Okay, so let's see. So essentially, now I guess if you want to start digging into like your experience on Clarence, maybe we can do some of that. So essentially, you had 2 years, a kind of 2 year gap, like 2 gap years, right? Yeah. But eventually you ended up
bummed out. So I don't know what my life is going to be.
What am I going to do? And man, we've all been there, I think. So how did you end up getting your job on Clarence? I know you said they gave you that writing test, but who was it that you knew on Clarence that you kind of pulled you aboard?
So there was a writer, Pat Harpin, who like he was the one who kind of like reached out to me.
How did you know Pat?
From CalArts. So these are CalArts people.
Oh,
yeah,
CalArts
so
people.
Skylar
Okay.
and Pat. Yeah.
Cool.
And also Nelson Bowles was someone who was on the show early on.
Shout out.
And then so like they knew me a little bit, and like they thought it was funny, and they took a chance on me.
Cool.
And it was like this crazy thing of like waiting for months and not thinking I was gonna get it. And like,
it took months before they responded.
Yeah, because like I did a lot of different like tests things back and forth, where like all those things I listed were like spread over months.
Oh, it wasn't all.
At first, I did like a couple little like scenes, and then I did like a full script, and then I ended up doing another. The first one I wrote was ended up becoming an episode called Jeff's New Toy, and it was about Clarence's friend Jeff like gets this new toy, and then Clarence breaks it, and he doesn't know how to fix it, and they were like, we love this, but it's not about Clarence, and Cartoon Network, you know, or any show, which I didn't know, but like first season of a show, if there's a lead, like all the episodes kind of have to be about that lead character. Like you can't go off into like little side thing. I mean,
it's a dumb rule.
And more or less, like a lot of, I'm not saying that's my rule, I'm just saying that's like what they wanted, you know? And so I was like, oh, okay. And then I went off and wrote this other episode called Slumber Party, where it's about like Clarence goes to a sleepover and it ends up being like a girl's slumber party, and he's the only boy, and like kind of like some gender things, and so that was the other one I wrote. And so like that was like what they ended up showing Cartoon Network as opposed to the first thing I wrote. So it was a learning experience for sure, and like I went nuts over it and like took it so seriously, and like I was like, okay, don't mess this up, like this is your golden ticket, and like I just like rewrote it and like showed it to all my friends and was like, what do you think of this? This is funny, does this make sense, you know, like just anyone I trusted, and like got feedback and got eyes on it.
Nice. So what was it like? Can you describe the experience of them telling you got the gig? What happened and how did that go down?
So I was at a burrito place with a friend of mine in Chicago, and they called me and they had me on speakerphone, and I couldn't understand what anyone was saying on the other end. And they were all like, it was like all like, I think it was like Katie Krantz and like a bunch of like Cartoon Network executives, and then before that I actually flew out. That's right, I flew out for an interview too.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't know anything about animation. I was like very dressed up for my interview.
They hate that.
Blazer. I had like a blazer, and like I was like way overdressed. Like everyone dresses like, you know, like
I learned they hate that.
I didn't know.
I don't know about this one.
Yeah, I was like way overdressed, and like I sat down in a room and they showed me the Clarence pilot. And it was so weird. I was just by myself for a long time, just like waiting, and then like Katie came in, and then like Skylar was the showrunner at the time, and like
And you already knew him, right, or no?
Yeah, from school. Okay. Yeah, and then they interviewed me, and then I flew back to Chicago, and then it was like months later. Like, I didn't know. I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen. Yeah, it's so weird. It's weird to think about all this stuff. I haven't thought about it in a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of how it went down. But yeah, then they called me
and
they told me, and I thought like I had the golden ticket, like Willy Wonka.
Do you remember what the burrito place was called?
I don't remember.
Sorry, no
burrito
shout out
place.
for you guys.
Chicago.
Yeah, somewhere in Logan Square, I think. I don't remember.
They're actually catering this event. So did you you were in Chicago when you got the call at this burrito place? They told you that you got the gig on Clarence as a writer, and did you essentially like, all right, I'm packing my shit up and it's time to go?
That was it. Yeah, like I flew out.
How long after you got the call did you go out?
I think it was pretty soon after. I don't remember exactly, but it wasn't too long after that. And then like I remember like hitting up friends from CalArts, and like I ended up like I had a roommate that like, you know, like had someone that was my roommate that I knew from CalArts, and like I was like, yeah, I don't have any money, don't have any stuff. I'm just coming out here and hoping for the best. Hope it works out.
Nice.
Did you have to join the Writers Guild because of this?
So that's the thing. I'm not in the Writers Guild. So a lot of animated kids shows I'm in the Animation Guild.
Okay.
And then I'm SAG for voice acting. But yeah, a lot of them are not, because they are outline based. They're not script based.
Yeah, I think
I think scripted shows are WGA. Like I know primetime stuff like Simpsons, Family Guy, Rick and Morty. Yeah, like all that is Writers Guild. But
can I ask how you got the gig for Clarence's voice? Like, how did that go down?
Yeah, so
that's complicated.
Yeah. Long story short, the original voice left the show, and
we don't need to go into that.
Enough said about that. And then I had been doing a lot of scratch audio, like temporary audio for animatics, which like do people know what animatics are? Like it's like a storyboard cut to time, you know.
Yeah.
And so I did a lot of like temporary audio for Clarence and for some other characters and stuff.
When he wasn't there and stuff.
Yeah. And also just in the writers' room, like all the writers would kind of pitch like, I guess it just comes natural to me. Like I've always like joking around growing up with my brother and stuff, like do voices and like reading the character voices in like doing an impression of like Jeff or like, oh wait, Clarence, how are you? Like we would just do all the voices, and so like I just got used to doing that to pitch like dialogue. And a lot of times the way we would like work out dialogue is by improvising together in the writers' room, where like I would play a character and another writer would play a character, and we would just like do a scene until we like found something funny about it.
How many writers did you work with on the show?
Well, it was usually about 3. I mean, like I worked on the show for like 5 years, so people came and went. You know,
I'm just like,
but
how large was the team?
Yeah, it was usually like a showrunner, a head writer, and then like 2 other writers at the most. It's pretty small writers.
Pretty small team, yeah.
Yeah,
wow.
Which is cool because you get a lot of like creative control over whatever you're writing. It's like most of what you write ends up on the screen, which is cool. Like,
how closely do you work with the board artists?
Yeah, I was about to.
Really close. Yeah. Like the board artists, like,
because there's no directors, right?
Yeah, they're directors too. Yeah. Really close. Like when I was on Clarence and on 12 Forever, which I'm on now, like we're in like every pitch meeting, and when I was on Clarence, I was in animatics a lot too, and like a lot of other stuff. But yeah, we're work pretty close with them, and you know, like it's interesting because it's like technically it was a board driven show, but like they're like I call them like script lines, like really dense, like 6 or 7 page outlines.
Yeah.
That like have dialogue in them and have
so
like
the scripts,
scene
they weren't
direction
traditional
and
scripts.
Well, when I first started on Clarence, we were writing traditional scripts, like full scripts.
Yeah.
And then I guess at that point, I don't know if it was because like Adventure Time was doing so well or what, but like their whole thing was at Cartoon Network was like, we do board-driven shows, and like so they're like, we don't want you to do the scripts. And we're like, all right. And now I think there is a new show that is scripted. I don't know, but anyway, so they didn't want us to do scripted, and so we kind of transitioned into these like in between things. Because on other shows, I've done like freelance outlines and stuff. They're like outlines, like how you would expect an outline to be, and this was like kind of in between, I guess, like a script but a weird format script.
I always wanted to try a model like that because I figured like it could be effective because I've worked mostly on script based shows. And you're almost locked to the script half the time. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, like, I think with ours, it was, like, there are certain things that if they were scripted out, like, that's what we wanted it to be. And then there were certain sections of the episode where we would leave it a little more open. It was like, oh, this is like a montage. Here's, like, a list of jokes you could use, but if you come up with something funnier, do that. Like, and that was the thing, that was kind of, like, the whole, like, thought behind that show, where it was, like, if, like, everyone kind of adds their own thing, and, like, you know, if you're a director or a writer or a board artist or even like a designer or whatever, like if you want to add something funny to it, like as long as it makes it better, like I feel like you can't have too much of an ego about it. It's just like, for sure, that's great. Let's do that.
Yeah, it seems like you guys are pretty open minded on the show.
I think that makes something better. Like it's like,
as long as it.
I fully agree.
I just feel like, I don't know, like I always see it as a collaboration, and I feel like that's always like the most healthy way to look at it, where it's like, it's not like a hierarchical thing, like we're all just working towards the same goal. We're all making a thing together.
Like, we all do the best we can and we push it.
Because it's like,
do the best they can.
Like people, like I've seen like some productions where people kind of like play the blame game a little bit. They're like, oh, it's bad because of the voice acting, or it's bad because of the writing or the boarding. And it's like, without any of those pieces, it would fall apart. You know, like
well, part of that, the reason why that
you need everyone
happens is because they're not literally collaborating together. Like first few shows I worked on, which were like kid shows, the writers were in New York.
Oh, whoa, weird.
So like, and animation was done in like India and Korea, so it's like we couldn't talk to anybody.
Separate.
I like everyone together. I think that kind of makes more sense. Like
it's more intimate.
It's more cohesive, because otherwise it becomes like a game of telephone.
Yes.
And like, I feel like the writer's job is to make the board artist's job easy. And it's like,
and the board artist's job is to elevate the material.
Take what's there and plus it and make it work, and you know, hopefully it works by the time you get it. But
you scratch my back, I scratch yours. Kind of
so
for sure.
Work together.
So
good collaborator.
How did you end up going from like a writer to a head writer on the show?
So
you were a head writer for how many seasons?
Oh gosh. Season 1, I was not. I want to say I became the head writer season 2.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly.
It's kind of an ambiguous season.
It's all like, we had season 1A and 1B, and then we had 3 and 4, and it's all just runs together. It was, I don't know, but we had a head writer, Mark Banker, and then he left for another show, and there was that kind of position left empty, and then I kind of found myself doing what I was doing, and then also his job.
Okay.
And then it got to a point where I was like, "Whoa, hey, what's going on, guys? Like, I'm kind of doing this job. Like, shouldn't this be what I am?" And they're like, "Okay." And I was like, "All right." That's kind of how it was like. It was like a scary thing where like I talked to people at Cartoon Network, and like I was like, "Hey, like, past couple months I've been doing this job, and I'm like, my position is still like this other staff writer job, and like whatever, and like." I don't know. I encourage people to speak up for themselves. That's what I'm trying to say.
I think that's
great
advice.
Good advice.
Like if you feel like, and they were totally cool and open, and they're like, yeah, that makes sense, sure. Like it was totally fine, you know. Like it was a little intimidating, but I think once you do it, it's like, all right, I can do that now.
You had a case to make though.
Yeah.
When this guy Mark left, there was no head writer at all. So was everybody just kind of?
It was just kind of like for a couple months.
Yeah. Cool. So maybe they were just seeing who stepped up to that position.
Yeah, maybe.
Like,
I don't know.
A battle royale. Cool. So you ended up being the head writer for the last, I guess, the latter half, more than the latter half of the series, so like season 2.
Yeah, like a bunch of it. Yeah.
What was the experience like being a head writer? Can you describe a little bit about that job and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So it was a lot of basically meeting with the other two writers who, for most of the time when I was a head writer, were Kelsey Abbott, who I work with again now.
Oh, she worked on Uncle Grandpa, too.
Yeah, and she works on 12 Forever now. She's like the lead character in the show. She's the voice of the main character.
On the show.
Yeah,
she's oh my god, I love
it.
Yeah,
you should. And Tony Infante. And so, like, it was a lot of, like, meeting with them and talking about what they're working on and pitching ideas together and working through, like, kind of what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, and you know, helping them with scenes and jokes and like whatever they needed. It was very collaborative, and then also sometimes writing my own episodes and a lot of editing too, like going through their stuff and like combing through it.
Did you have final say on like the scripts at the end of the day?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I don't know if every show is exactly like that. I mean, I try to be as like diplomatic as possible, and like, you know, I feel like it's dangerous territory where you're like, I didn't think of that, I'll do my joke and say like that kind of sucks, you know, like so I don't know, like I hopefully I didn't change their stuff too much, but
you didn't pull a Dan Harmon.
I have a question about like the work hours. Like, did you ever find yourself taking a lot of work home, or did you just mostly do what was necessary, like the 8 hours and everything? Because I assume, like, I don't know, it seems like all the like jobs where they're very like creative heavy, and directing or supervising, any kind of those like head honcho jobs, they seem to take a lot of work home outside of because it's just like deadlines. And
I think there was a period on the show where I was just like doing a lot, and I was there till really late, and I was taking stuff home, and then I think it just got to be kind of unhealthy, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna do this, and like I don't look at work after this time, and I need time where I'm not doing work, you know? Like, I think it got to that point where I was like, all right, let's just not stress out, and like it'll get done, and that's fine, and like everything's late, but that's okay, and we're all gonna get through it, and you know,
it's not brain surgery.
I think when I was starting out, like, you really want to prove yourself, and you don't want to mess up, and you want to seem like, I'm ambitious, like whatever you throw at me, you know? And I think that's good, but you also have to balance it with like
life
in your life.
Yeah, you can't let it consume you, because then that's going to show in your work eventually. If you're unhealthy in your mind, it's not going to translate. It's going to translate to your work. Things are going to suffer.
I mean, the best stuff I think we made on that show was when we were all just like enjoying each other's company and having a fun time, and like, oh, let's do this thing, that's so funny, oh, that's so weird, yeah, let's try that, and like taking risks. And I mean, that was one of the cool things about that show, is like we got to try a lot of different little formats, and like especially these new episodes that are airing, like there's one we did that was all improvised, which was really fun, like the dialogue.
Oh yeah, you said you did that with
Brendan Small from
right?
Movies.
That's pretty rad. That's so rad.
And then we did one that was like as if it was like Clarence's home video camera, so it's all like POV.
POV
yeah. So that one was cool.
That's a
and like
tricky thing to pull off.
Yeah, it works. There's a lot of like After Effects filters of like, you know, like camera shakes and stuff.
A lot of like thing going down to the floor.
Yeah, we did that a lot.
Nice, dude.
But yeah, that one's cool. And like, yeah, I think what was really fun about that show is that we got to try out a lot of different things, and it was cool.
Nice, man. Okay. So is there before we get into like what you did after Clarence and whatnot, was there any other little anecdotes you can share when you were on the show that are, you know, maybe like juicy, cool stuff that happened while you were on the set? That would be fun little anecdotes for the fans of Clarence, because I'm sure there's like, you know, tons of fans out there that love the show Clarence, because I know it's one of my favorite shows.
Oh, yeah, it was a good show.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's still on technically tonight or today, and then the next Sunday and the Sunday after that, and then that's it.
Plug.
So it's 3 weeks. So watch it or go online and watch it.
We're not sponsored by Cartoon Network.
No. Sorry. And then, but yeah, little interesting facts. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to pull something out. We did have that one Clarence Friendly Ghost episode that we pitched that I was telling you about earlier.
Oh, yeah.
We had this idea for an episode where Clarence falls out of a tree and hits his head on a rock and dies. And then, like, his ghost comes out. Because it just came from us joking about how his head is, like, the same shape as, like, Casper the Friendly Ghost head shape.
Yeah.
And we thought it'd be funny. The evil Canadians.
Quick, get down.
Too soon.
Yeah.
There's this idea that
this episode had to get made.
So we pitched it to Cartoon Network as a premise, and they they accepted it, and we were like, this is a bad call. It was like first season, and we're like, oh, it's like too soon to be doing these like wacky, like shark jumpy. Like save that for like balance and weird. We did other weird episodes later on.
I'm just surprised they said, yeah, kill that kid. Let's do that episode.
Yeah. They thought it was funny.
They had a lot of weird implications on Cartoon Network.
It's funny because there's like some things that they're so freaked out about, but that they were like, yeah, go for it.
Because kids don't really like think about it, you know, when they watch it.
Doesn't Casper like air on Cartoon Network?
Maybe like Boomerang or something?
Maybe Boomerang, yeah.
I don't know.
So it's probably still within their brand.
Yeah, well, it wasn't going to look exactly like him.
Yeah, but even still, they wouldn't allow that anyway.
A child dying on camera?
But it's, yeah.
I guess it's cartoony as it goes.
Adventure Time was insane, so
true. Well, they're their own.
Yeah.
Also,
they could do anything. They were untouchable.
He wouldn't be dead at the end of the episode. He would come back, I'm assuming.
Like a dream.
He'd like go back into his body.
Well, that was the other thing that we were joking about. Was like, but then he's just dead forever. He's just a ghost, and it just gets like really sad. And he's like, it's like a funeral. Like the joke that we had was like, it's like his funeral, and everyone's crying, and he's just like, "Ooh, I'm a ghost," and like everyone's like sad, and like, he doesn't understand that it's serious. But obviously, too dark. We couldn't. We censored ourselves. We're like, let's not do that.
Are there any other ideas that
golden opportunity?
Yeah. Speaking of ideas that you went through and some that got like shut down.
Yeah.
Are there any other ideas that you were surprised that actually got through and made it into the show?
There's one that was pretty early on that I wrote called Puddle Eyes, where he like falls asleep in a mud puddle, and then like the mud is like crusted over his eyes,
yeah, sure,
and
I
he
remember that.
like is essentially blind the whole episode. And we're like, is this offensive? Like, it's not like poking fun at blind people, of course, but like we're just like, are people gonna take it that way? Like, I don't know.
Or if it's mud on the, isn't that like also like blackface or something?
Oh no, it wasn't like his whole face. It was just his eyes.
Oh, okay.
It was just his eyes. I wasn't thinking that. Yeah, it wasn't. No, it wasn't nothing like that. Oh god. But yeah, that was one thing, and then
be careful.
I don't know. Yeah, well, there was one thing that we really wanted to do. So we did this like 6-episode story, which was really cool, like a little mini series where it's like a storm hits the town, and each episode, I was saying, was like kind of inspired by 22 short films about Springfield, where it's like each one is like different side characters get their own episode. There's one about like Jeff and Clarence's mom and her boyfriend Chad, and one about Sumo and his family. But originally the idea for that was a tornado was going to hit the town, and the joke was it was going to be like treated very seriously, and then the final episode it would like Tasmanian Devil into Uncle Grandpa, and he was like, "Good morning," and you're like, "I just was here to teach you guys a lesson." And we like talked to Pete about it, and he was on board, and like we pitched it to them. I remember sitting there with Nelson, and we're like, yeah, so that's really funny, right? And she was just like, that's not funny. And we're looking at each other like,
my neighbor was destroyed by a tornado.
Well, they thought it was like disrespectful to like the fans who would be watching that like we had this serious story and then kind of like undercut it with a joke. But like to me, like I love like that's Tim and Eric and South Park and like stuff that kind of does that, you know. So like, to me, that's just funny. But like, I guess they thought it was rude. So we had Pete do a voice in the episode, but he wasn't Uncle Grandpa. So and also the tornado thing was like well, what if this airs and there's like some natural disaster? But still like a bad storm. Like what's the difference? Season 2. Yeah,
there
was 6 episodes.
There was a show I worked on. I think it was Growing Up Creepy, where the characters were in an amusement park that went through like a fake mine. This is during the mine. This is right after the mining disaster that happened like maybe about 10 years ago. And they said because of that you can't do a fake amusement park mine. It's not a real mine. And mines exist. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's like anything. You never know. There's one episode we did where it's like John Waters is in it. He plays like a airplane pilot, and it ends with like it's like Clarence's mom's boyfriend Chad has a fear of flying in the whole episode, and then like they end up in the cockpit and they're like, yeah, try it out, you should do this, like overcome your fear, and he has his hands on it and the plane goes down, and that's the end of the episode, just cuts out. And we're like they let us do that. That's pretty surprising.
Planes crash all the time.
Yeah, I mean that's like pretty dark, I guess, but there's no originally it had screaming and then we cut the screaming out, so I think that's what saved us. Like we got rid of the screaming and they're like, okay, you can do it. There's some pretty weird stuff we did. There's one where like they stay up late for the first time. They've never like pulled an all-nighter.
Yeah, and they
kind of get this like sort of psychedelic, like trippy. Yeah. And that was like pretty. That was
I love that one. That was great.
The Lindsay and Alex Smalls Butera, who did Batman, Spider-Man. They did all the the crazy.
Oh,
animation
they were the ones that
that
did the animation for that.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
I love.
So,
I remember loving that animation.
But it's not really, it's not like they're on drugs. It's like
Batman,
they're just staying up late.
That was the implication.
It's a little loopy.
Yeah, it's just a little loopy. But there's just some stuff that we got away with that's pretty weird and
It's always fun when
bizarre.
you get to do that in a kid show.
I feel like the best stuff is just like it's weird, but they can't quite nail what's wrong with it, so you get to do it. It's like it's just weird, and they're like, well, we can't tell you no because it's weird, but it makes us uncomfortable, and we're like, yeah, but why? If you can't say why, then we can do it.
Was there anything that you were surprised that got like shot down? That you were like, what? Why is this getting shot down? Or anything like that?
Or any crazy network notes or BS&P notes?
I mean, there's always some weird things where you just don't expect, like, I don't know, like, there's certain things, like, we wanted to do a joke where it was, like, Clarence has a fanny pack, like Uncle Grandpa, and he pulls out, like, a troll doll with the gem in its stomach, like Steven Universe, and they didn't let us do it, and they were like, oh, I guess it's, like, kind of, like, on the verge of, like, putting product placement in the show, so they didn't want to do it. Like, all right. That was like one thing I can think of.
How is it product placement? Because it would
have been like an indirect, because they're like, well, if we ever want to make those toys, now we can't, kind of thing. Because like technically, it would be like we're advertising them. That was how it was explained to me. I don't know. There's so many weird like.
But it's a fanny pack.
There's rules about how you advertise for things in kids shows.
Yeah, there's laws about like you can't.
For example, we can't put in advertisements for the Teen Titans movie in the Teen Titans show.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No crossover.
No crossover.
Interesting.
It's like you have to treat it separately. Even though it's the exact same thing.
That's strange.
Oh, that's weird.
I did editing for like a TV channel. You specifically can't have any advertisement of the show during the show.
Oh, weird.
So even if it's for like Amazon, even if you're independently owned, it's just an FCC thing.
Right, because it's like product placement kind of like,
And everything has to have captions now too. If it doesn't have captions, it's illegal.
Oh, well that's good though.
I mean, yeah, I always watched captions as a kid just because I like reading.
But even but it used to be if it was like made before a certain date, you didn't need captions.
Yeah.
Everything now.
That's good though. I mean, it's progressive. It seems positive.
Things change.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, one thing that was funny is anytime there's a shot with a bathroom, they would always say every single time without fail has to be they would say no stains that are brown or yellow can be present.
I remember that.
Every single time.
On Uncle Grandpa. They always told
years
us that
into the
too.
show, it's like we're not gonna put like shit stains in this. It's so nasty. Like, what kind of show do you think we're gonna make?
No,
It's brown
I remember
stains
on Uncle
smeared on the
Grandpa,
wall.
whenever there were any farts or anything, like they said, like it had to be like it couldn't be like green or like or brown or like
brown
they were so very specific about color.
we had one episode with a hobo character in it, and we tried to bring him back, and they said no. And I was like, but we already had him in the episode. He aired on TV, and they're like, well, we just don't think homelessness is as funny as you. And I'm like, whoa, okay, you win.
On Teen Titans, we got away with it all the time. We got Stinky Pete or Stinky Joe.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing too. And we're like, well, what if we make him more cartoony? What if we make him? They're like, well, no, kids won't know that old trope. And I'm like, well, make him more realistic. Like, that's kind of bad too.
Whoever that was had an arbitrary reason why they didn't want to see that character.
I think sometimes people just had a bad breakfast and they're like I ain't mad now. No. Like, okay.
We Quaker Oats.
We got away with some like religious, religion stuff because like they always say like there's no God in kids cartoons. You can't talk about religious stuff. But we did like one joke where he's at a zoo and he's looking at the map and he sees like an infirmary and he goes, "Oh, the animal church," and like we got to say that. And we had nuns on the show. We had a priest on the show. Like I was surprised. Like that's pretty. You know. Oh, Jeff's mom's obviously. Like,
Jeff just has two moms.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean,
that's good.
Yeah, that was something where it was like took us a while to even get them on the show. Like, there's an early episode where it's like a dinner party and like Jeff's just by himself and everyone else is with their parents.
Oh,
so we're like,
oh, my parents were busy.
Yeah.
Was there ever any?
They went to their home planet.
Was there ever any pushback on the two moms thing?
There was. I mean, it was more just kind of like because the show airs internationally, like we had to be careful about how we portrayed them sometimes. But
because
we got to have them, which is cool.
Because Ian got in trouble with that with Steven Universe.
Yeah, I got yelled at for. I was stupid, and like we had a kiss between two men on the show, and like someone asked me about it, and I tweeted about it, and like got some. Wasn't good. I was ignorant.
Really?
I was like,
what happened?
I mean, nothing happened, but it
what
just
did you
like
say in your tweet?
It became this thing where like they copy pasted the tweet in all these articles as if I had been interviewed, and it was like stressful and
Oh wow.
Now I know that the internet is always watching.
Because like even locally, people wouldn't have too big of a problem with it, but like you said, the international markets.
Yeah, I mean,
oh yeah,
yeah. Like I think there's some markets where it's like illegal to be gay, and like they're paying for like a big portion of the budget of these shows, and like it sucks. It's like, well, why do we want to support them? Like screw them. Then they shouldn't show the show there. But
we should just show
I'm not in charge of making money, obviously.
But when they air it internationally, they'll cut out certain things that are inappropriate for those cultures.
Yeah, I've seen cuts of that. Yeah, like I've seen Clarence cuts. Like there's one scene where like Sumo's older brother is like looking through a yearbook and like practicing asking out different girls, and like in the version, I forget what language it was dubbed in, but it was cut. They just cut that scene.
So you can't be like, oh, I'm gonna.
Can't even talk about going on dates. Yeah. That's so too risque.
Wow, I had no idea.
So that's why when you tweet about like two men kissing, it's
right.
like, oh my god, that's official now.
Right, and then it became this whole thing of like Cartoon Network censors first gay kiss, and I was like, well, they didn't really censor it. We just changed it. Like I don't know, it wasn't really like oh, it was so crazy.
I tried to have Beast Boy and Cyborg kiss in an episode. They wouldn't let me do it.
Yeah.
Bugs Bunny used to kiss men all the time.
At least you tried, Brian.
All I have to say is look out for 12 Forever.
Yeah, can we?
I'm not gonna say too much more about that, but
can we?
Nice.
Can
I'm
we
excited
like
now.
talk about your like? Okay, how did you get into that gig and everything?
So Julia Vickerman, who is the showrunner and creator of 12 Forever, she also worked on Clarence in our last season as a director. So I became friends with her through that, and coworker obviously. And she asked me as Clarence was winding down if I'd be interested in writing on her show, and I said yes.
And 12 Forever was a short at Cartoon
So yeah,
Network.
originally it was developed as a short at Cartoon Network. They passed on picking it up to series, and then she shopped it around. I'm not gonna say that. They gave me my career. I'm very grateful for that. And so now she's doing it with Puny Entertainment for Netflix.
Oh, wow.
So it'll be on Netflix next year. And yeah, we're just finishing up writing season 1. And
what's the premise of the show? Could you, for people that haven't seen the pilot?
Yeah. So it's about this girl, and she lives in a town called Bethune, and she's 12 years old, and she's kind of like Peter Pan syndrome, like she doesn't want to grow up. And it's about her kind of struggling with this sort of becoming more mature, and like seeing her friends maybe become a little bit more mature before she does.
Yeah.
And so she has this sort of fantasy world, this island that she goes to, where it's a way for her to escape her life where she doesn't quite feel like she fits in, and this island is a place where everyone loves her, and she's like a superhero almost, and she has these powers there that she doesn't in real life. So that's more or less what it's about, and it's a really fun show. I think people are really gonna like it. It's been fun writing for Netflix. I was saying like it's like the season is like one continuous story, which is a little different than other stuff I've written for. Like, although we had like chunks of episodes like that on Clarence, it wasn't like, you know, they like to be able to air them out of like whatever order. So it's cool to work on something where it's gonna all go out at once.
Yeah,
like,
that's
it's
exciting.
One long story. That's
How many
mapped
episode
out.
pickup is it? Or was it?
I want to say it's 26, 11 minutes, but there's a couple that are like 2-parters and stuff.
Okay, cool.
But I'm not sure if that's exact. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that.
What was it like writing? Clarence is kind of grounded in reality with a lot of like weird little idiosyncratic stuff going on. Yeah. But like 12 Forever is more of like a fantasy show, right?
Yeah.
So what was it like writing for one versus writing for the other?
I mean, 12 Forever, it does kind of split its time. I mean, it's majority fantasy, but it does have a lot of grounded moments in it too, where she's at school and she's like doing things with her friends, and so it's similar but different. I mean, I would say Clarence is a lot more of a cartoony show in some ways than this show is. It's
more of an action show too, right?
There's more of an action. Yeah, there's like big fight sequences and things like that. I had never really written anything like that before. Yeah, I mean, it's just fun to do something. I mean, I was on Clarence for 5 years. It's fun to do something different. And,
yeah,
like,
I feel that.
Was there any like preparation you needed to do when you were writing for action, adventure, fantasy? Now, did you go through and like watch any material? Did you like brush up on any kind of writing or literature or anything like that?
Hook is the movie you watch.
Hook. Hell yeah!
And I do like Hook.
I love Hook. It's a great movie.
Yeah, I mean, Sailor Moon. Like I think like Julia, when we were starting, like everyone loves Sailor Moon. Yeah, but she was talking about Sailor Moon. I hadn't seen a lot of it, and I was like, all right. And it's on Hulu, like the uncensored, original, like Japanese, cleaned up. It was like perfect time to get into a show for the first time. Like, so I watched a bunch of those. But yeah, I think a lot of the stuff that Julia was into that we talked about, like I had already been a fan of, and I think there's a little bit of a lot of different things in there, like especially when they're on the island, like there's all these weird creatures, and that's a little like Pee-wee's Playhouse ish, or like almost like Nightmare Before Christmas a little bit. Like they're not like they're kind of weird and not very self-aware, and like
cool.
Yeah,
and you did voices for some of these characters too, right?
Yeah, I do a couple of voices on the show. Do like a lot of weird creatures mostly. I don't do a lot of like the grounded like real world characters, just like a lot of the silly.
Yeah, some of the silly weirdos.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to do them now, or is that out of the question?
I don't know if I am or not. I mean, I haven't like talked to anyone about this.
When does the show come out?
2019.
Okay,
so maybe a little early.
Let's hold off.
Yeah, maybe hold off.
Yeah,
surprise.
Yeah, it'll be a surprise. But I do some silly character voices.
Nice, man.
And it's I think it's such a cool show. And it's doing some things that I haven't really seen in kids shows before in this way, and like without, I don't know, it's hard to talk about without spoiling. It's a type of show where it's like if I talk about it too much, it would kind of be a spoiler. Right. But yeah, it's been fun to write something where you're like seeing these characters change and grow and evolve, and
they all have like a season arc, which is nice.
Yeah. Like on Clarence, more or less, we'd have to kind of put the genie back in the bottle at the end of the episode and like hit the reset button. And we did some, like our last season, like Sumo moves to a different school, and we have like a soft arc about that, but it's only like 5 of the episodes or something that really deal with that. So it's been cool to write something that's like characters that can change. And
nice.
I love Netflix.
Yeah, Netflix really opened up the door for that. Like serialized, is it serialized shows? Is that the what it's called?
Yeah,
like with the arc over the entire
cereal and watch. Just
yeah, serialized. Yeah, they're all the characters are gonna have their own cereal line. No, I'm just kidding. That'd be cool, but I
don't think we just pitched an idea. Just kidding.
12 Forever O's.
12 Forever O's. I can see the commercial now.
But yeah, I mean, it's
sponsored.
Another thing that's cool about it too is just like it's like a female showrunner, female protagonist. Like I was working on a show about like 3 white boys for 5 years, so it feels cool to do something a little different, and like
nice.
There's some like there's some stuff in there that's pretty cool.
Cool, progressive kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Nice, that's great. So, as far as like writing on the 2 different shows that these 2 really big shows, Clarence and 12 Forever, do you have any advice for like aspiring writers out there that are looking for, maybe not even this specific type of writing, but somebody that is looking into getting into animation, writing for animation?
I think understanding animation is really important, and like being a visual thinker and studying film
storyboarding.
Yeah, storyboard. I just feel like if you're a writer for animation, it's like you want to know like the language of film, and just watch a lot of movies, and watch a lot, like study movies that you love, and TV shows that you love too, and
classics and why they are classics.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because like there's a lot of times where people think that writing for TV is all just about like clever, snappy dialogue, and I don't think, like, at least maybe it's just a matter of personal taste, but I think there's more to it than that. Like you should be able to think visually and understand how a scene might look, and I think that's a big part of it. But yeah, if you want to be a writer, just write a lot of stuff. It's for sure. That's a simple version. Just like keep writing things.
How can you promote your writing like online? Like, do you like have a blog or something? And
definitely have a blog. I mean, I know like at least in live action, there's a lot of people who write like funny essays, and then they blow up and become a big thing, and then they get a job on a sitcom, or like
there's like writers. There's also things like Cracked or The Onion or something like that, where you could like go and go that route. Because I know like Cracked was taking like just submissions and stuff like that.
She writes for Cracked.
Yeah. So there's different routes if you're into comedy writing that you can definitely like brush up on your chops.
A lot of people start like by being stand-ups, or like actually coming from the comedy world into writing. I think for animation too, it's like if you want to get into that world, like, and you're young and you're in college, like there's a ton of internships that anyone can apply to as long as you're in school, and like I would say start as an intern and meet people, like become a PA, become a writer's assistant. Like
you mentioned earlier, like working with other people on projects too.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, collaborating with people, and like, one thing I will tell people is don't send a complete stranger a bunch of writing and say read this, and then get mad when they don't respond to you right away, because that sucks. Here's what you should do first: hit them up and say, hey, I'm really interested in like becoming part of this industry. Let's get coffee. and then just get coffee. Just start small, because sometimes it feels a little weird and demanding and cocky. And everyone
we talked about that last week.
Yeah. And it's like everyone that you love, that they would love to do that, but they're all very busy, and like I think that's like one thing that like is like that I've noticed that like people don't always understand. It's like, just get coffee. That's and like, you know, like we hired writers on Clarence from that like freelance stuff, and you know, like it's not.
Yeah, it's like we want to know you as a person.
Yeah,
like,
start there.
Learn to like you, not just like, here, give me a job. Like,
yeah,
I can't.
I've had people like get mad at me, like, why haven't you read this? I'm like, I don't even know you. Like, nice enough that I'm reading it at all, you know.
That's really funny.
But yeah, I think and like people do, I don't know, like spec scripts. Like you can write like if there's a show that you're very familiar with, like I've seen a million Bob's Burgers spec scripts, writing as being head writer on Clarence, and like
I read a Mindy Project spec script. It was pretty good.
Yeah, like that's a good way to practice. Like if you're not if you don't want to come up with a whole idea of your own show, like just write an episode of a show that you're very familiar with and you like, and you know the tone and the characters, and I think that's a great way to practice writing too.
For sure. Can you give us? Oh, sorry. Yeah, what's up?
I'm not much of a writer, so how important is like formatting for writing? Like if someone was to show you something and it's not like professionally formatted, would it like drive you up a wall?
I mean, I think if
just the way
it's laid out.
I mean, if you're writing a script and it doesn't look like a script, it might not make you look that professional.
There are like formats you can find that like just
if you have Final Draft or even like Celtics, which is like a free version of Final Draft, and if you're a student you want to get Celtics because it's free and it looks the same when you print it out, like who cares? That auto formats everything for you, and you can just tab through and it does it. And you know, it doesn't have to be perfect as long as it's like the writing's good. That's the important part, is like if it's comedy, if it's funny, and if the story tracks all the story beats, and you know.
Yeah, but scripts have a very specific look that they shouldn't have. It's like if you say I want to be an animation writer and you give someone like a novel. It's like,
I mean,
30 pages single spaced. It's gonna be a half hour, right?
Like, it's 30 pages. I'm reading Hemingway now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think a lot of it just has to do with like, seeming like someone that they would want to work with, right? Like, I feel like that's like the big part of it too.
Yeah. Rule number one is always don't be a dick. So.
Oh yeah, and like, just be someone who's like comfortable being themselves and funny and friendly.
Don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. Yeah.
Could you potentially like give us a little bit of a walkthrough of your personal like writing experience, your process? Your personal writing process, how you go from start to finish on a script. Let's say you're writing an episode of Clarence or an episode of 12 Forever. What do you do? How do you start it, and how do you finish it?
Yeah, I mean, well, with Clarence, it all depends. Like a lot of times, it would start with an idea about like, well, what's something from your childhood that you've never seen on TV before? Like, that was a question we would ask ourselves a lot. And if there was some kind of specific memory of, like, a weird babysitter or a field trip or a funny thing that happened with your grandpa or whatever it is, you know, like, something funny or interesting or strange. And, like, taking that real-world thing and then, like, making it funny or applying it to the show.
Yeah.
And sometimes on Clarence it would just be like, let's pair these characters together. I've never seen them together. Like, what would that look like? What would happen? Cool, you know, like
just the dynamic of how these characters would interact.
Yeah, just like having like a shoebox and like putting things together and seeing like, oh, that's funny. Like, how do those two things interact? I think because those ideas can come from anything, or just like a funny image, like oh, it would be funny to have this image, and then like sometimes I would like write the ending and like work my way backwards, like up, like how do we get there? Like, I want this to happen. This is funny. Like, how can we get ourselves to that point? You know. But then it's like a lot of brainstorming, just writing every version of the story. You know, like in a sentence. Like, okay, well, it could be this or that or this or that, and then like almost like building this like big blob of clay and then chipping away at it and until you have like the things that make sense for the show and things that are interesting or funny, or sometimes like you have a story and it's like the third act doesn't make sense or there's no ending and you have to like figure out like okay, it's like a puzzle, you know, like you get these little puzzle pieces and you see how they fit together, and then after that taking all that brainstorm mess and doing like a list, like a beat sheet of like Act 1, these are the story beats, Act 2, Act 3, like that's kind of the boring part. And then, and in that brainstorm stage too, like maybe like a line of dialogue will pop in your head, or like a joke or something weird that like maybe this will fit in this episode, maybe it won't, I don't know. And then from there, taking those beats and like fleshing them out and building it into like a full outline.
Nice.
And yeah, this is so boring. I'm sorry.
No, it's not. I mean, it might be boring to some people, but the people that want to be writers, this is
super
important,
super helpful. Yeah.
Well, I know, like when I have to direct, part of directing is also managing and understanding the strengths and weaknesses of the artist who you're working with. Does that also apply when you're a head writer as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times when we were doing handouts, meaning like which storyboard team gets the episode, we would try to play to their strengths. Or like if we were an episode and we're like, oh, this is really action heavy, let's give it to this board team because they like nail technical boarding stuff, like cinematography, like camera shots and all that kind of stuff. Like they're really great at that. Like let's give it to them. Or like sometimes it'd be like something that's like, the story is solid, but it's not the funniest. Like, well, they're really funny. Let's give it to them. They'll make it funnier. Like, so we would try to, if we had that, like, depending on this, how we were with the schedule.
You know your artists well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like I was saying before, like, you gotta know everyone on the crew well and collaborate with everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, so yeah, just going back to the writing thing. So yeah, just write the outline and then just edit it and rewrite until it makes sense. And then on Clarence it would be, we would sit down with the other writers and do almost like a table read where we like whoever wrote it would read through it and like pitch as much as they could in the character voices and and then like ask us like, okay, I want a joke here, but I wasn't sure it should be this or that, and like come up with alt pitches and stuff. So
nice.
Yeah,
that works. Okay. And you're saying Clarence, from what you told me, was from what you said earlier, was like started out like a script, but then it kind of went into like a script outline kind of thing, right? Yeah,
we call them like script lines. They're like these really dense. There's like an example of one that I put online on like I think it was on the Clarence Crew Tumblr, but it's like 6 pages ish, 5-6 pages. But typically outlines are only going to be like 3 pages. Yeah. So these were a little more dense. Like we'd have dialogue.
Yeah, because there's dialogue worked in.
Jokes and stuff.
And 12 Forever, is that just standard script?
12 Forever is like pretty similar to the Clarence ones.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's like a script line?
Yeah, kind of the same thing.
Oh,
yeah.
Really? No way.
I don't know, a lot of shows are doing that, but I guess now that now from Clarence and like a lot of Clarence people are on this show, so like
it's either one or the other.
You kind of do what you guys are used to since you all worked together.
Yeah. I think we're just doing what we're used to doing.
Yeah.
But like at least that way you can be more, especially the way you're doing, you're going to be more adaptable. Yeah. Some shows were just straight board driven, and some shows are just straight script driven.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, either one is fun. They're fun in different ways, I think, as a writer.
Yeah, and as an artist, like I haven't done a board-driven show, but I know there's a lot of board artists who love the control from a board-driven show, and there's a lot of artists who enjoy just give me the script and just let me draw it. I don't have to think about it.
Yeah, I've heard both, definitely. Like, some people are like, oh my gosh, there's so much for me to figure out, and like, on top of boarding this, I have to write, and like, I don't want to do that.
Some people don't have a sense of humor, like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because it's a little bit of like writing when you're bored.
Yeah, totally. You have to be everything. You're an actor, you're a director, you're an editor, designer.
I wish we were doing that because Teen Titans Go, we have to break scripts all the time.
Yeah.
And we're still doing that, but we're not getting credit.
Oh boy. But yeah, like the other thing too is like I always think about, it's like when you're on a show, it's like a Venn diagram of like, this is what I like or I'm good at, and this is what the show is, and like maybe I can find that crossover in the middle of like because you're always sort of adapting your own sensibilities. And like on Clarence, like I feel like there's a lot of me in that show, but it's not my show, and you always have to kind of be like, all right, we're all laughing at this, but this isn't the show. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Like, we all love this idea, but it's not Clarence. Let's like, you have to kind of pick and choose, you know?
It's not only if it's funny, but if it's funny, and it also needs to have the tonality of the show.
Yeah, like, you have to support, like especially, like, on 12 Forever with Julia, too. It's, like, my job is to support her vision and what she wants to do.
Yeah.
And,
nice, man.
So that's part of it, too.
Too.
Yeah. You can't have too big of an ego and be like, I just want to do what I want to do. It's like, well, it's not your show.
Yeah, no one likes egos.
Sure. So let's see what before we get like wrap things up or whatever. I want to know if there's any other things that you want to add on to like any other additional advice
Overall
advice or anything like that. that you can squeeze in there?
Parting wisdom. Yeah, I think a big thing that I wish I did when I was younger is just like make a thing for you and make the thing that feels good to make, and don't worry so much about what you think you're supposed to be making. Like, I feel like I was so concerned about like, oh well, I have to make this like big serious film like when I was in college, and like that's not really who I am. Like, I wish I just made dumb funny things. That's what I like to make. Like, that's all I want to do is just make stuff that makes me laugh and makes my friends laugh, and whatever that is for you. Like, if something makes you feel good when you're making it, like, I feel like that's what you should be making. Like, I feel like I was too concerned, about this external,
trying to fit a square.
noise.
I guess trying to fit like a square peg in a round. I don't know. Maybe that's not the right thing, but just trying to
I know what you mean.
Fit.
Yeah.
Trying to make what people want to see.
No,
Trying to make what people want to see rather than make what you want to make for yourself.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing that always surprised me too with like people asking about Clarence, is they're always like, okay, so like I remember one time someone was like, well, do you have a degree in child psychology? I was God. No, I went to art school. And then like
there are a lot of people in animation who have that. So,
oh really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Specifically in the writing producer side.
Really? Wow, that's surprising.
I mean, I imagine it helps.
But like, I guess what I was trying to say is like people would always ask me like are you thinking about kids when you're writing stuff, or like thinking about a specific audience? And I never am. It's always just like
it's like this is why.
Like,
well,
and not
you're
in like a not
accessing
in
your own inner child.
not like in a dismissive way. Like, obviously we're like, okay, kids are gonna be watching this, so you have to be aware of that.
Yeah, of course.
But I think it's more like trying to make something that's universal, that like anyone can enjoy.
Yeah, because they also don't want to talk down to children.
Oh yeah, that's the worst. Yeah, that's like, I've heard people say stuff like, well, this is for 5-year-olds, so let's cut this part out. And it's like, come on, that sucks. Like, kids are smarter than you think,
Yeah,
and like
even if they don't get it
this
now,
stuff too.
and it's
and even if they don't get it now, they'll get it later.
And also just like,
I love those
they might
shows.
learn something. How horrible! Like, why is that a bad thing? I don't understand.
I
like,
love rewatching things that I used to watch as a kid, and then looking at all of the things I missed as a kid. That's my favorite.
Yeah, whatever went over your
you get
head.
to like,
You're like,
you get to
that's what
rewatch
that
it, I don't know, rediscover what you used to love as a kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's layers to it for sure. Yeah. You appreciate it for one reason when you're 5. You appreciate it for another reason when you're 25.
Yeah. But as when you're creating like artistically, it's like, I'm making the show for me, but not for me, but for the benefit of like me as that child. Like, like you were saying, a lot of the ideas you guys pull.
It's like stuff that, like, what show would I want to watch if I was a kid? Yeah,
well, like you were putting in stuff from your childhood that you experienced. I'm sure there's tons of other kids who experience it.
Who can relate to it. Yeah,
even if you're not thinking of them specifically, they are going through similar experiences. Yeah,
and like all the best characters, I feel like, are like based on someone you know, and you like exaggerate it, or like
write what you know. Right is a very good rule as well.
Because it makes it so authentic. It makes the character less like stereotypical or like super cliche. Like it gives some sort of I don't know.
That's a good point, because it's like, I've seen that bit and joke 100 times.
Yeah, and that's weird too. I feel like there's like two types of instincts, and like a lot of people have this instinct to be like, oh well, this worked for them, so I'm gonna do my version of that, and it's like I feel like my thing is always like, even on Clarence, if we did something, I'm like, oh, we already kind of did that, let's not do it again. Or like, oh, like this other show did that, let's do something different. Like, I feel like it's like, it's tough because everyone's done everything, but at least make it your own. At least you know,
you guys really killed that. On at least, I mean, I've watched probably the entire first 2 seasons of Clarence, and like, you guys always keep it so different episode to there's always like something unique about the episode that's new that I've never seen before, which I always really appreciated about the show. Like something weird that you're maybe paying homage to, or something that you guys are doing that's like, wow, this is something that I've never seen.
Yeah, we've done some like weird references to things, and like
I think at one point I remember there was even like this callback to like a commercial break in the middle of an episode where it like fades out and goes back on.
That's
the best.
That was probably like my favorite joke I wrote for the whole show.
Oh, that was you.
And I was so happy that it stayed in, because it was such a weird joke, because it's an 11-minute show. And like, I used to watch like shows like Futurama or whatever, like on Netflix or Hulu or whatever, or like even on the DVDs where it like fades to black and then fades back. And we're like, let's put a fake one in the middle of the show. So we just did one where it just
that was the best, dude.
He's like, oh no, a bear, and then it fades to black, and then it's like a slightly different drawing of him saying the same line when it comes back up. And like I was like, no one's gonna get this isn't even a joke. Like no one's gonna understand it. But like the two people that do are gonna think it's so funny.
It was great.
And I was like so happy that it made it into the episode.
I remember I was watching that with a friend because back when I was living in Jersey, I think that was actually out when I was living in Jersey before I moved out here. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe I was just
2013 or 14.
Oh yeah, if it was 13, then I was still in Jersey because I used to go over to my friend's house and we just binge watch whatever cartoons we felt like watching. Yeah. And I remember watching that. I was like, oh my god, that's genius. That's so funny. So that definitely hit. We were the two people that got it.
There's some weird like format stuff that we did like that. Like I don't know, I'm a big fan of like Strangers with Candy and like Tim and Eric and like people. They do all that kind of stuff. So. That's a big influence on me.
Yeah.
Nice, man. So what does the future hold for Spencer Rothbell?
So 12 Forever 2019. It's coming out. I'm doing writing and voices for that.
Mm-hmm. Are you developing any shows for yourself?
I would love to. We'll see. TBD. I have a bunch of ideas, and I that's a big goal for me. I want to pitch a show.
Nice.
Long-term goals.
I did some writing for Victor and Valentino, and I do some voice work on that show. I did a voice on Animals, HBO Animals. I don't know when that comes out, but
Animals is going to premiere since I work on this show. It premieres August 3rd or 10th. I forget what.
Okay, cool.
What premieres, yeah.
I was wondering if you could do some of the voices
from
Clarence, from Animals. Just like
okay, well the Animals one is I guess.
Well, the Animals one is Clarence.
Yeah,
actually, but before we get into doing voices, I was wondering if we could combine that with the prank call.
Oh god.
Is that a possibility?
I don't know.
Prank calling
I feel
a friend.
too bad.
Well, it would be a friend of mine. We would prank call a friend as Clarence.
Somebody who actually loves
Clarence somebody that likes Clarence.
Well, what about your friend who you watch Clarence with?
Yeah, we could do that. Sure, that'd be great.
I'm sure it's 10 a.m. over there.
Yeah, no, it's like midnight.
Well,
I don't know. I don't want to. I feel so like cringed out or something. Like I'm gonna be unfunny, you know.
Prank call me and I'll just act.
Well, that's no fun.
Gosh, wow.
How about I just do some voices without calling anyone?
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
that.
Yeah, sure.
Oh.
Okay,
let's hear some.
You
Clarence.
could have made a fan happy. Clarence
oh, now you're making me feel
calls
that.
me. Oh my god.
Listen to them.
So Clarence is like kind of like this. This is my Clarence voice. He's sort of up here, and like sometimes he gets real high, and then sometimes he's like down here a little bit. So that's one voice.
Oh,
I don't know.
it.
Like I wish 12 was out, because then I could do some of those voices.
Oh yeah, you can.
But I do some weird screechy voices.
Oh no, you can't.
And Clarence I did Balance, who's like he kind of talk like this.
Oh, I remember Balance. Yeah, that was like the anti-Clarence.
Shaking like a sycamore tree. Kind of down, creepy anti-Clarence.
Kind of like a Sling Blade or something.
Yeah, I did a character called Mavis, which just grunts. Like, like that. Trying to think. There's probably someone I'm missing. But.
Well, these are a lot of the voices you did when you're just playing around with your friends.
Yeah, well, I mean, not Clarence, obviously, but like, I mean, I would always do like weird, like I would watch SNL and mimic those, or like I'd watch commercials, and I loved like announcer voices.
Did you ever do a Pee-wee
coming
voice?
up on the next Pee-wee? I can kind of. He's like kind of like what is it like?
It's almost
You do like to laugh a little bit. Like, I know you are, but what am I? Sort of kind of like Pee-wee, right?
Yeah, that was amazing.
Hot? Who's hot? Feels just fine to me.
Oh my god.
Nice. But yeah, I'd do a lot of like impressions and stuff like as a kid.
We didn't dare to do impressions. Like the last voice actor we had on the show was Bowser.
Oh my god, he's
amazing.
amazing. He can do anything. He can do like Homer Simpson and like all the Warner Brothers cartoons,
his
and the Looney Tunes.
Great.
He's so funny.
Danner did Kermit.
Oh yes, he did.
Danner did a little Kermit.
But Kermit also, Danner also does Shaggy. He does like
that's cool.
He covers for when Casey Kasem doesn't want to do it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think
back for a short second.
I know.
There you go.
Yeah,
4
that's
segments.
like voice acting and voice work. I'm like, yay.
I know. I like listening to it. You'd be like a little kid. Do it.
If you had to choose, would you do writing or voice work if you could only choose one?
Oh, if I had to pick,
yeah.
Probably writing. I don't know. That's tough.
Yeah, because writing you get to be
I
more
think
creative.
there's something you get out of both that I get out of both that's different. Like when I'm in a voice acting booth and I'm like with other people and we're all ad-libbing and working off of each other's energy and like I say a line and they say a line and like you kind of go back and forth and like I think there's like a certain creative itch that gets scratched that doesn't when you're writing. Mm-hmm. Like writing I feel is a little more like you're just kind of in it yourself and but it's still collaborative too, like a writer's room.
Yeah.
I just like working with other people, I think. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know, it's tough.
That's cool.
That's a good
I love voice acting. It's really fun. Writing, I feel like writing can be more frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Voice acting is frustrating when there's like a line and they keep having you redo it and you don't know what you're doing wrong. And they just like they're just like, yeah, can we try it one more time, but a little more angry? And you're like, I thought I was angry. And then like they do the line and like, because it's like they're behind the glass and it cuts out and you hear them just like. Yeah, can we try it one more time? You're like, oh no, what are they saying? You know, like that can be frustrating. Or if you're like an episode like Clarence, I feel like there's so many times where I was just like, ah, like yelling or like running, like
All the efforts. And stuff,
like there's so many like hours of me making weird noises like that. But, like that can get a little like I don't know, but it's fun. I don't know, it's so fun. Like how can you complain? Like just
for sure.
Making.
If you were to
fun
create
times.
a show, would you voice the main character?
I thought someone was just talking about that. I think I would just do like I love how like Penn Ward is like lumpy space princess.
Yeah.
And like it's like just this one little weird fun character and like
Yeah.
you don't have to be in every episode and like
It's kind of like when directors insert themselves in like,
like
their
the
own
Hitchcock
movies.
cameo or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Like,
M. Night Shyamalan.
yeah, like I think that would be cool to just do one like weird character and then like have people who are like way better at voice acting to the main character.
That's probably wise.
Yeah.
Because you don't want
Yeah,
to pull
it's
a
less-
jest and just burn yourself out.
Yeah, because they do like since they're so dependent on to be show up to work every day just for the show itself,
Yeah.
and then they have to like leave their duties at work to go voice over these
Right.
characters.
Like
Like I
Seth
remember
MacFarlane
Pete
is, like,
always being
4 or 5
stressed out
characters.
because of that. Yeah.
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 Mm.
I mean, I was
How much
never.
is-
I mean, because I wasn't a showrunner on Clarence, so I guess it was maybe easier than like
Yeah.
if I was, it's like all the more responsibility
Yeah,
and
it's a
like,
lot.
Mm-hmm.
So we got questions.
We got some fan
Cool.
questions.
Yes.
Oh boy.
Can we answer some?
I would love to.
Okay, first let me grab my phone here. Oh, I just shocked myself.
I heard it.
Uh-oh.
I saw the light. I saw like a little spark.
We are
Um,
gathered.
You saw the light. Get away.
I saw the
Stay away
light.
from the light.
I saw the light. Okay, I'm gonna go live on here too while we answer some questions. There we go. Okay, so we are now live on Instagram. We had a question earlier.
We had a few questions.
Yeah, we had a lot.
Nick,
By
are you keeping
Aaron
track of us?
Valentin. What are your thoughts on the representation of colored people in media? I feel like there's one Cora for every 5 Machikos.
What's a Machika?
I don't know the reference.
I don't
I know
either.
Korra.
If you don't get
I
the
don't know.
reference,
Legend-
the anime
Legend
Machiko.
of
Oh,
Korra.
Michiko and Hachin.
I'm confused.
an
I don't
anime?
know that
Yeah, I
much
think it's
about
an anime where
stuff.
like a girl, like it's like
Oh, I
two
know
girls
what
on the
that
run
is.
and one's like a child.
Yeah. I've seen
It
it.
can
takes
It's like
Google
place,
it.
she's
it
a
takes
black
place
woman.
in
I've
South
seen it.
America. Michiko Malandro escapes from prison
No, I've
and
seen it.
tries to
It's-
rescue someone.
Yeah, it's kind of like a 70s exploitation black woman. I've seen it,
okay.
but I haven't watched it.
I
I've
mean,
seen parts of it.
obviously, I think representation is really important, and like people seeing a reflection of themselves on TV, especially kids, is super important. And I hope that,
and women.
well, yeah, of course, yeah, women, and yeah, like I think people hopefully will be making more shows that represent more of the world than. Like I was saying,
Oh,
like
you're working on one,
Clarence
yeah.
was like a show about 3 white boys that I worked on forever, and like as much as I love that show, I hope there's more diverse stuff
Well,
coming out.
you're working on one.
Yeah, and I am. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I think it's just one of the things like I don't know what the crew makeup was on Clarence, but I just know behind the scenes it can also be like a very like white experience, but also mostly male. But I don't know if that was the case with
Clarence at least by the 3rd season was 50-50 split with gender, and it was pretty diverse.
Okay.
I would say the one thing is like, even the directors too. Yeah, it was pretty like gender wise. It was a pretty diverse show.
Yeah, I know there's I think he was working on Clarence. There's one black guy, and I know a few female board artists who are working on Clarence.
Yeah.
It's that is becoming more common, but at one point, especially early on the industry, it was less common.
Yeah, I mean on 12 Forever, I'm the only male writer. Everyone else female writers,
Wow.
which is pretty cool.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it'll take some time, but I don't know. It's important, and yeah, like you're saying, like it's not just the writers, but everyone who's working on the show like has a piece of that show, and hopefully, like the more diverse the crew is, the more that representation will happen.
Yeah, because like especially like fostering up talent that's coming, because those designers, board artists, young writers will become the show creators next.
Yes, yeah, so which is great.
Yeah, they'll start doing their stuff.
And also, I think too, a lot of it you have to look at like who's at the top, like who's the showrunner, who's the head writer, like because it's like even if there is diversity, like those power positions need to be diverse too.
Right, it definitely helps.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, we have Aaron Blaylock asks, what are the odds for an artist who is older, like 50, but wants to break into animation?
I think, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of variety in age. I don't know. What do you guys think? It's a lot of young people.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of.
I mean,
I heard that. I know recently there was a 45-year-old intern at Disney or something like that who kind of worked his way up through the ranks.
If they want to break in, I mean, just like even with age.
I don't want to discourage anyone.
Yeah, no one should be discouraged.
No.
Don't worry about your age.
If they have the talent, they have the talent.
Yeah, it's not about age.
Yeah, it's true.
I went to college with a 40-some-year-old or something.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter.
The hardest thing about being like at least a little older and trying to break in is like you're gonna be starting in at like peasant wages.
Yeah.
If you have a family support or like a mortgage or anything, it's like this is what everyone else is making.
And if you don't mind like a 20-something-year-old being your boss too, like that might be kind of.
That's super
it's
important.
Like I mean, like
so
I don't know, like
tricky, but if that doesn't bother them,
yeah, age like you have to abandon that number once you start working, because it is kind of frustrating when like somebody does think that they I don't know, they know more than you or something just because they're older, and like you just we all forget about how old we are once we start working.
Yeah.
Like I forget how old everybody or how old I am compared to everybody, because everyone's just like I don't know.
The entertainment industry in general, and probably animation might be the worst at this. Maybe games is probably worse, but it caters to a younger aesthetic.
Yeah,
that they hire like students because they
fresh out of college, it's
they
like
can exploit them.
They're like, oh, these people like they know what's fresh and they know what kids are gonna want to watch and they know what the new thing is,
but,
and like
but there are still all the veterans too of animation that are currently working right now.
Oh yeah,
so,
of course.
But they started when they were young.
Yeah,
that's true.
So
I don't know. I mean, I think it's just like any kind of job. It's like you said, like if you have the talent and the work ethic, and
you'll be hired.
Yeah, you'll be hired.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't get too discouraged.
Connections.
Yeah.
Like, I think
Cool
age-wise,
person.
it's pretty big range on Clarence too.
I mean, especially now that like you're making a show for Netflix, like there's so many more avenues for production.
And that's the thing. Like Hulu, Amazon, Netflix, like even beyond like Nick Disney and Cartoon Network and stuff. Like there's so many more places you can go and places making things.
Yeah, for sure.
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, the only thing they have to branch out is region, because right now it's like L.A. and maybe parts of New York and definitely Atlanta are the only games in town.
Yeah,
for
LA.
television.
Yeah, I think LA is big.
So don't be discouraged.
Yeah,
no,
don't.
Like Aaron Valentin said, it's never too soon.
Yeah, for sure.
Aaron Blaylock also asked, what are the trends in the industry at this time, and what are studios looking for?
Oh, that's a good question.
Is that as far as like, I don't know, is that as far as like pitches? Is that what
I have
like what they're looking for.
One thing,
tones.
if I could just jump in real quick, one thing that I went through a pitch about a year ago at where was it? I think Nickelodeon, and I pitched to a woman there. And I pitched a handful of ideas. It was more of a discussion of what they're looking for, as well as a few ideas I was throwing out. There's a few things they liked and a few things they didn't. When I brought up my Colombian heritage, they really liked that. I think they were looking for something in that direction, like some Latino influence, because I had one idea that was based on my dad's experiences growing up in Colombia. So they really attached to that. But another thing they told me that was huge at the time is anything that's involving family and family dynamics. That's what they said they were looking for. So
that's
Nickelodeon specifically. So I mean, I'm not sure what other places are looking for. I'm sure people are looking to have their next Loud House. That's probably why they were saying that, or something like that. But as far as Nickelodeon, that's the feedback that I got.
I remember at one point hearing that like at Cartoon Network someone was saying like, oh, we don't have any things that are like actually for young kids. Like we say that we're making stuff for kids, but like especially coming off of Adventure Time, I think it's like, oh, this all like so aged up and mature, and like I think they wanted something like cute and sweet and young. Like that was something I remember hearing.
Something a little close to like preschool, but not that young.
Not preschool exactly, but just not quite as like oh, we're pretending this is a kid show, but it's kind of like for teenagers,
Right. Yeah. Something like Rugrats or something.
Yeah. But I think the thing about that is it's always changing too,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's more about having an original idea and coming in with something that you're excited about and that you're passionate about, and you know, like, it's that balance of like they don't want to risk something too much where this is weird and we don't know if it's going to be a hit, but also you don't want to make something that's just a copy of something else, because that's not going to do well either.
For sure.
It's also always tough to tell what the trend is, because by the time the trend starts airing, we've already moved on.
It's
to
too
the
late.
next trend.
Yeah, production wise, they're already doing the next thing.
For sure. Yeah. So I guess it's really just what's in the atmosphere, what's in the zeitgeist at the moment, and what people want to see, you know. But
like, I remember, like, when I started on Clarence, I was excited about it because it wasn't a fantasy show, really. Like, because of, like, the big popular shows were, like, shows like Adventure Time, which I love, but,
Uncle
like,
Grandpa
it's
was also
different.
a little bit of fantasy.
Yeah, it was just grounded in reality.
Yeah,
I remember
so
when
cool.
watching it, that's what appealed to me.
Yeah,
like,
it's sort of like,
appealed to me,
Hey
it was,
Arnold, Doug. Like,
yeah, exactly. It was like a Hey Arnold, it was like a Doug, or it was like a Recess. It was something that was kind of grounded in reality. It was nostalgic for childhood, but at the same time, they had an original take on it with a lot of different.
But now there's going to be like 10 shows like that, so don't do that. Do something.
Yeah,
do the
yeah.
the third thing, the other thing.
Yeah, and there's always
now there's
always
100
anything.
Clarences, so
And
do another one.
Okay.
Fair.
As long as you're telling good stories with good characters. And one thing, as far as like, no matter what I'm trying, whatever I'm talking about, when I'm reading about pitching, when I'm pitching something, the feedback I always get is you want to make sure that the main character, you want to keep coming back to the main character. You want to see that main character in every situation. You're selling that main character most of all.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Austin Lincoln Hoker asks, for your voice acting, did you do any voice training to improve and hone your skills? What is your process for developing different voices?
Yeah, I don't know, like, I've always had that kind of, like, mimic thing where,
Play.
yeah,
You just play around.
just playing around, like, I think that was always something that came natural to me with, like, friends. Like, even as a kid, I would just do weird voices with my friends and, like, try to make them laugh, and I feel like, yeah, just playing around and seeing what feels fun or funny. It's kind of like developing a character, I guess. Like, you're just deciding, you're making these weird choices, and I feel like the more you kind of are in that character, the more you make decisions, and the more that builds the character, and it feeds itself, kind of. Like, oh, it'd be funny if this guy, like, has this weird, you know, like, pet, and, like, I'll talk about that, and then you kind of figure that out. And I don't know, I think it's, like, kind of like that. I mean, I have heard of people taking voice lessons. I've never done it. Maybe I should.
Because some people, like, don't know how to have that range.
Yeah.
You know? Like, you're able to work with the back of your throat and, like, change your voice, like, in these weird things. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't know. I mean,
I used to love the Pee-wee, like, voices.
I think it's a lot of, like, imitating things. Like, I would listen to commercials and, like, infomercials and do, like, the,
That's
like,
smart.
like, buy now, like, those kind of, like, cheesy
Wow.
voice like this. Like, I would just think it was funny and fun, and, like, I don't know, watch too much TV, I guess. But, like, I loved, like, Phil Hartman, like, oh my god, like, obsessed. Like stuff like I always thought he was so funny, and I would try to do like Troy McClure, and, like, I can't do it, but, like, you know, like, just try to, like, imitate that as a kid, and, like, I don't know, like,
Mike Judge, because
That one,
Hank Hill.
that one commercial. Dos Equis
My little Hank Hill
commercial.
pin.
yeah. Oh god, oh,
I must conceal my nudity.
Bobby?
whacking off in my tool shed.
Just do this all day long with your friends, people.
Yeah, just do dumb voices and
Yeah.
try to make your friends laugh. I mean, there's some that I can't really do well, and, like, you know, there's some people that can, like, imitate. Oh my god, like
Accents too. That's always hard.
like Tom Kenny, like he was sumo on Clarence, and he can do
We
any
need him
kind of
on.
animal voice, birds, and, like, any kind of. He's amazing, you know. Like, some people can just, like, really nail it. But yeah, I think just practicing, and even when I'm by myself, like in my car, I do weird voices, and, like, when I'm in the shower, and when I'm, like, I'm just a crazy person. Yeah, I don't know. I think all that helps. Just whatever's fun and funny.
Nice.
And,
Just keep honing in your craft. That's just always be doing it, I guess.
and I think I learned a ton on the job, obviously, like, working with people like Tom and, like, Katie Crown and all these people that, like, could do all these voices, and just being around them and seeing what they do, and kind of, like, taking cues from them.
Or the apple trick.
What's the apple?
Did you guys ever
eating
have
an apple
apples?
for, like, if there's, like, stuff in your throat.
Yeah,
kind
or it gets rid of that sound that you
spittle.
naturally have.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard of that? No? Oh,
Yeah, I've heard
they
that,
they
yeah,
like
yeah.
keep a green apple And like when you hear too much like lip smacking, that like I guess it's something with the like you get like cotton mouth or something. They tell you to take a bite out of a green apple
because it's sour, I guess.
I guess so, and also just like I don't know, chemistry,
something
man.
Like
something about
the enzymes.
There you go.
You're also supposed to drink like water like an hour beforehand, because if you drink water during the record, it's not gonna fix your dehydration right then and there.
Yeah.
Interesting. We're learning something.
Yeah, it's
Mouth science.
trick.
Mouth science.
Mouth science.
Lauren L.A. Art, or no, not L.A. Art. Sorry, I always like read that weird. Lauren L. Artist. Hi, Lauren.
Hey, Lauren,
could
great
you?
submission.
Yes. Could you explain a little more what it means for a show to be board driven? Board driven. How does that method change the writer's role?
So script driven is like a fully scripted episode, which is just more detailed writing, and that script goes to the storyboard team, and that storyboard artist has to basically draw exactly what that script says, and not really change a whole lot. And on some shows I've heard you get scolded if you try to like South Park. Like
Rick and Morty.
I had a friend that worked on South Park, and like they knew someone that worked on the show that like tried to add their own jokes and stuff, and they got fired. So like some places is like pretty serious. You know?
Primetime animated shows, the scripts are gods.
Yeah, like you just everything is exact. And then on a board driven show, especially like a more traditional board driven show, the outline is just a loose outline, and the storyboard artist gets to come up with a lot of the like jokes and dialogue, and even change some stuff in the story if they want. And so it's a little more open and more on the storyboard artist to come up with a lot of the dialogue and jokes and that kind of thing. Does that sound right?
I have a follow-up question to that. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Sure, of course.
Okay, so for script-driven shows, like how detailed do the scripts get? For like, do they plot out action and reaction beats? Like, will you get sort of like big chunks of descriptive text?
Sometimes.
Is that normal?
I think it depends on the show, but yeah, I mean, a lot of primetime shows, it's like what they're all standing around talking, right? Like the whole show, like Family Guy, they all just stand in a row and like say a joke. Yeah, remember that time? Like,
they won't often give us like specific acting things unless it's something that has to happen. Like someone's talking and they pass over drunk at that moment.
Right.
That's important, but
like
they won't
this
tell
person
me.
picks up a coffee mug and like it's
and
some has to do with the plot somehow.
But like if it's literally like, oh, I'm moving my hands this way, or do a clap or anything like that, they usually won't detail out
like the acting is on you, kind of.
Yeah, or camera positions. They won't tell us that either.
So what about like mood setting and stuff like that? Does that get written out?
Yeah, you could do a little of that, like if it's raining, lightning strikes, but like maybe a board artist could come up when a specific lightning was striking. There would be a cast down.
Sorry.
But if you're doing a board-driven show, that's all on you.
Yeah, like it depends on the show. Like I wrote a pilot script
That light looks creepy.
for Nickelodeon, and like it was pretty detailed. Like a lot of the action and stuff, but like I also like coming up with all that stuff. You know, like maybe not everyone does.
I've heard stories like I had buddies who worked on the last He-Man cartoon that came out in 2003. They'd say they would often get Nick knows they would often get action scripts that would say action ensues.
Oh no,
that's all you'd get.
That's horrible. That's nothing.
Comedy ensues.
But that's
The
board
jokes happen.
Yeah, even though it's stressful. Yeah, exactly.
It's very funny.
The Tim and Eric, I've read a few Tim and Eric scripts, and literally it's like someone sings a song about spaghetti.
And they song.
Okay, and then the editors, like they all just have to make it up on the spot.
But that makes sense for that show.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But like like something like Curb Your Enthusiasm or whatever, there's like a loose outline that they just like let's just like we have to hit these points, but
definitely relying on the performer's skill.
Yeah, the actors, and the editor, like you said, like
I was just curious. Thank you for answering.
For a board driven show, when do you do like scratch dialogue and stuff? Because for a standard show, you'd write the scripts, you'd record most of the dialogue, and then a lot of times the board artist will board to the dialogue, or at least like a half scratch, half recorded dialogue or something like that. So if it's all board driven, is it something along the lines of you would just have an outline, board to the outline, and then record scratch as you're boarding, or
no? So like for board driven shows, it's like we write the outline, the board artist storyboard it, and then we use the storyboard to create a record script. So like all the dialogue that's at the bottom of your board, basically. Yeah. And sometimes the writers will tweak it or rewrite jokes or whatever, and then that goes to the actors, and then you're in the booth and you have a TV and you see the storyboard. Okay. And so you're recording just to the storyboard. and then later they cut that audio with the board to animatic.
Gotcha.
So scratch would be like if we had to do a rewrite, or there's an actor that didn't show up or had to change or whatever. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. That clears it up.
I had a quick question for Scratch Audio. When you're working and you're doing Scratch Audio, are you like, do you have a mic on your desk? Are you like going at it and then dropping the audio in yourself, or do you have like someone helping you?
So we have an animatic editor that their whole job is just to cut animatics, and so they had their own office, and so you go in there and like they have a mic on their desk, and then I would sit down and do Scratch Audio, and sometimes it's someone who's not even the actor at all, and they're not even trying to do the voice, and then like later on they call it ADR, like additional dialogue recording. Is that replacement? And you go replacement. Yeah, you go in and you like dub over it basically.
Cool.
But
now for all these takes, are you just trying to get like the like words on like in audio, or are you like trying to get like specific beats? Like,
well, it depends. Like sometimes we have to do temp audio if like we've recorded the whole episode, but then we get a note back from the network that's like, hey, you can't say this thing because it's a product and we don't want to get sued by them or whatever, you didn't get the rights. So then we have to go in and last minute like change it to something else. Or sometimes it's like a scene isn't working and we need one more line to make it work, or it's like awkward timing where a character is just on screen and they're not saying anything, like, oh, they should say something there, like, so we'll add it. So it just depends on like why. There's different reasons why we need to do it. And then sometimes we can go in and have someone record that before it gets animated, and sometimes depending on how far along it gets animated, the lip movement to like the temp audio, and then the other person has to like try to match the lip flap, which is so hard and I'm really bad at. You hear like 3 beeps, like 3, 2, 1, and then you have to go and like, so that's how it goes.
That's how dubs.
Yeah.
When they do
like anime.
They have to match.
That's funny.
That's
on animals it's easy because there's no lip sync.
Oh yeah, that's really easy. The easiest. No lip sync.
So we have one more question. I think we're going to close with this question because it doesn't seem like we have any flowing in, which is fine. I think this is a good time, so I'm sorry if anybody doesn't have any questions. So Bank's question, which is our last question for Spencer, is, hey Spencer, are there any shows, current, past, or future, that you'd love to write for, and are there any jobs in the industry that you've not had but aspire towards?
Well, I mean, I want to have my own show one day. I guess that's a job I haven't had. Other shows that I'd want to write for, I don't know. I feel like it's so weird because like I feel like there's shows that I'm a fan of, and I feel like if I worked on them, it would kind of like ruin it for me somehow.
Yeah, I get
it's like I love watching them. I don't want to know what goes into it. Like if I know to, kind of wrecks it a little bit, right? Like I hear that from a lot of people where they're like, oh, I'd love to write on that show, but like I don't know, like kind of.
What's one of those shows? Just out of curiosity.
Like shows that I'm a fan of.
Yeah, that you would.
Oh man, like I just went to a panel for Atlanta. Do you guys watch that show?
Yeah, of course.
I need to start that.
It's funny because like they were talking about how it's like Tiny Toon Adventures was a big inspiration for the show, and how like
summer vacation one,
they wanted like each episode to feel different, and like that was like Clarence too. Like we wanted each one to feel different. I thought that was so cool, but like I would never. I mean, why would I be writing for a show like that? It doesn't make sense, Or like I like Westworld a lot, and like I like. The new Twin Peaks was like amazing. None of these are cartoons.
I'm watching the original one.
Yeah. Oh, you are starting from the beginning?
I am. It's so weird.
First time through?
Yeah, first time through.
Wait till I get to season 2.
I think I am in season 2.
Season 2
right
dips
now.
and then gets better again because Lynch left and then he comes back at the end.
Oh really?
Yeah, because they made him reveal the
I'm
killer.
not paying attention exactly to where. No, it's fine. I'm enjoying it. In the beginning, I laughed so hard because the acting, very first episode, the acting was ridiculous. I was like, what is this?
Twin Peaks is like you fell asleep watching daytime soap opera.
Yeah.
And
you ate a weed brownie.
Yeah.
Before you fell asleep.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it. It's great.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, like none of those shows like have anything to do with my own experience. You know what I mean? Like I'm not qualified to write on any of them, but I'm a fan of them.
I guess that's mainly what he's asking.
Well, how about like what genre are you looking like? You've done slice of life. You've done fantasy.
Oh, I want to make a horror thing so bad.
Yes!
I love horror. I don't even know if it'd be animated or not. I just want to make something scary. Like I love horror, and like I think it'd be really fun.
There you go.
That's something I've never done that I would do.
Or it's always like a good intro for like first time like live action directors. It seems like that's like it's cheap, easy, and you can make some quick cash.
It's funny, like I feel like I don't watch a ton of animated stuff. Do you guys watch a lot of like animated shows?
I used to.
I used to.
I feel like I watch a lot of like live action stuff if I'm watching TV.
It's a good mix of both.
I don't even watch TV anymore, so.
Oh my gosh, great.
I watch just Netflix and YouTube.
That's
and
TV,
Hulu.
same thing.
Well, sort of. Because sometimes there's original Netflix stuff.
But
you
that's
know?
TV.
It's still television.
It's
yeah,
the new television.
it's the new television.
That's what I mean by TV.
Okay,
Just anything
guys.
that's a show on a thing, on a
mean,
TV or a
what sucks now
laptop.
is because like I don't have cable the way I used
Yeah,
to. So
but
I used
no
to
one
just
does,
like,
right?
well, yeah, I know, but like I used to discover things that way.
Got
but
it.
now
Yeah.
like I have to wait until someone tells me it's good, or I discover it myself.
Yeah.
You know?
I like Baskets a lot. That
I hear
FX show.
Baskets.
Baskets is super fun.
Baskets is good.
Or Better Things is good.
Oh, I haven't seen that one yet.
I've been watching
Better
Handmaid's
Things,
Tale
Stranger
and just
Things.
makes me wanna
All the things related
All the
shows.
all the
things.
things. There's a lot of things.
Things,
out there.
things.
Things. That's a great name for a show. Things.
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 It's gonna be Spencer's future show, guys.
Yeah.
Things,
Look out
things.
for it.
You heard it here first.
It's about a young comedian trying to date in LA.
Oh!
You know, there's like 100 shows like that. I would never.
Spencer
I
Rothbell.
would never.
Yeah.
All right.
Every young comedian wants that show. That's the truth.
Yeah, I never heard of that one
Yeah.
before.
Are we gonna close out?
Yeah.
Yeah, unless there's any more questions rolling in.
Nah, I think we don't have any. So, but I think
Put
this
an
is a good
Instagram
time to
filter on
cut. Because we're good.
Let's see what else there is. I think that's pretty much it. I was just doing
that's it.
filters on Spencer's face.
Yeah. Oh,
I
there's
am a dog
filters.
now.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize you could do filters on live.
I guess you can.
That's
There you go.
weird.
Oh wow, they changed. That's awesome. I had.
Enjoy this.
love that.
I guess
Piece
if
of
you're only watching on
entertainment.
Instagram,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
special filters.
You get the
See,
special.
Instagram
Oh, look, there's a
people.
little
Do
sun.
whatever I want with this.
You can
thread.
do
Oh snap! You can
It's not
edit.
a threat.
Wait, let's see what happens here. Oh, there you go.
Oh,
Oh, nice.
I'm
Oh,
in
you're in
love. Oh my
love.
God.
Sorry, guys. I know no one else is seeing this, but we're
Yeah, this
having
is really good for the audio part of it.
Yeah.
we're having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I guess that's pretty much your. You should take this away.
Right,
Just
we're not
listing
gonna-
my favorite TV shows for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. They're
This is
doing
what people want to
Oh,
hear.
and then Instagram.
These are the
Snapchat.
sandwiches I like to eat. I don't know.
Cool.
Okay. So
I guess that's it.
That's
okay,
it.
so before we wrap up, I just want to say, Spencer, thank you for being on our show. It was a little sloppy at the end, but thank
No,
you
it
for
was
being on our
fun.
show. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me.
We loved having you on. There was a lot of great advice that you shared with us
so.
about writing, about being in the writer's room, about being a head writer, about the process, and I'm sure everybody out there that's aspiring to go that direction is eternally grateful for that. So thank you so much for all that wise knowledge you brought forth. Much obliged.
Thank you guys
Thank
for
you.
having me.
Also, for those of you who submitted logos, if you're here to like wonder if you won or not, we're gonna right now after we shut down, we're gonna go over all the logo submissions right now together off camera. So and then we'll discuss like who won and then also the prizes and little stuff that we plan on doing.
Cool.
So tune in for that
In a minute.
in a minute.
In a minute. Sick. Cool.
In a minute.
Awesome. Well, again, Spencer, thanks so much for being on here, man.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me.
Much
Handshake, everybody. Handshake.
appreciated.
Gentlemen,
Handshake.
do the double.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Brian.
Give me a real one.
No one knows.
Yeah,
See?
just-
Oh, who's this?
Get in
Get
here.
out of here.
Do you
Yes,
know-
no, why?
knows
No.
me.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
No.
No. I wanted to ask that at some point.
No.
Some people want to
just
remain
Let's go that way.
anonymous.
Anyway.
Well, hope everybody had a good time here on
Yes.
Animation Success Stories. Spencer, thanks for showing us your ass. It was very
Beautiful.
beautiful ass. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Sexual
Please,
harassment is a thing.
Oh, God.
please tune.
Yikes.
Please tune in next time for the Animation Success Stories podcast. Hope you guys learned something because I know I sure did, and I'm sure we all did. See you guys next time in the ass. Peace. Thanks again, Spence.
Dropping my shit.
Right.